Everybody. My name is Catherine Morsani, and I want to call the meeting to order, Board of Adjustments to order. Is this when I read about the ex parte communication stuff? Okay, so I'm going to have a little thing just to make sure everybody understands what we're here for and to clear up some stuff. So the first part is ex parte communications. A member of any board exercising quasi-judicial functions pursuant to North Carolina's general statutes shall not participate in or vote in any quasi-judicial matter in a manner that would violate any person's constitutional right to an impartial decision maker. Impermissible violations of due process include, but are not limited to, a member having a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not susceptible to change, and undisclosed ex parte communication, close familial business relationship, or other associational relationship with an affected person or financial interest in the outcome of a matter. And then also, this hearing is quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means that, similar to a court hearing, state law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decisions. The board's discretion is limited. We must base our decision upon competent, relevant, and substantial evidence in the record. Our decisions must be constrained by standards in the zoning ordinance and based on facts presented. If you will be speaking as a witness today, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. General witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinion. For certain topics, this board needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values, projections about impacts of increased traffic. Individuals providing expert testimony must be qualified as experts and provide the factual evidence upon which they base their expert opinion. So, with that all said, welcome, and it's nice to see so many people here today. Staff, do you have any announcements? Okay, and with that, can we turn off all cell phones, please? Or
yes,
turn off the
no.
ringer of silence?
After you did the thing, you may want to poll the board members to see if for any of the hearings anybody has had any ex parte communications.
Okay.
But
All right.
other than that,
So, Paul, do you want to go ahead and get started? Did you have any ex parte communications on any of the cases today?
I have not.
Craig Allen, I have not.
Okay, Catherine Morsani, I have not.
Gabe Quisenberry, no.
Damian Vacaflor, no.
David Weinstein, no.
Okay.
thank you.
And then, does that kind of count as roll call too?
Yeah.
Great. All right, so has everybody had a chance to read the meeting minutes, and are we ready to approve last month's minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve last month's minutes.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? And any abstentions? Great. Okay, if we want to go ahead and get started with ZPH 2025000014 MHO Old Country Home Road SUP.
And just to introduce myself, for those that you don't know me, I'm Jillian Phillips. I'm the Long Range Planning Division Manager, and I'm filling in for both Savannah and Jay because they are at a conference today.
All right. Please raise your right hand and state your name.
Jillian Phillips?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm here to present the Mountain Housing Old Country Home Road Planned Unit Development. I certify that this public hearing was properly noticed and all applicable parties were notified of the meeting in accordance with general statutes and county code. I ask that all applicants and staff materials be accepted into the record as evidence. Does she have to say it? Thank you.
Sorry, what's?
Oh, I misread it, sorry. This is the review of ZPH 2025-00014, MHO Old County Home Road. Applicant is Justin Tuttle of Mountain Housing Opportunities. Owner is Kia LLC. The property is located on a parcel close to the intersection of Old County Home Road and New Leicester Highway. And lot size is 7.44 acres. The development will be served by public water and sewer. The special use permit is for 159 units across 3 apartment buildings. It is a community-oriented development that is 100% affordable units. The deviations they are asking for is building height, increasing from 35 feet to 55 feet, and parking decreasing from 1.75 to 1.0 spaces per unit. If approved by the board, staff recommends the following conditions of approval. Mechanism used to guarantee affordability must remain in place for a minimum of 15 years following the issuance of a building of certificate of occupancy. And project must be constructed as depicted on the site plan. And that is it for staff.
Yes, I have a question. Your staff report says the units will be provided at an affordable rate for 45 years. So I'm wondering why you're only requiring 15 years.
The staff report does. Did you guys apply for 45 years or 15 years? Do you know?
Generally with housing tax credits, it's a 30-year period, so
So I think that's a mistake in the site plan. I think it is 15 years, but if you give me a second, I'll check the zoning ordinance and community-oriented development. I think the max, Kurt, can you look for me, is the max for community-oriented development 15 years?
That 15's from the COD.
Yeah,
And that's just from the grid.
yes.
So
So
Okay.
it's a
So
mistake.
can we get some microphones out, and, because listening to the comments and stuff, because we want to make sure to get things on record, and then we probably need to swear people in, right?
So
So-
maybe we defer until the applicant has been sworn in to answer this question.
applicant,
Okay. Any other questions for her?
only question I had is this density, community-oriented development density table, in my tenure, this is the first time it has come before me, and I'm not familiar with it.
So
Are you familiar?
about the program itself?
Yes.
So the community-oriented development program allows you to increase density for projects when you meet specific standards. The first standard you have to meet is affordable housing or workforce housing. We've never had workforce housing, but affordable housing for a certain number of years. And then they have a choice of other things they can add to the development to get points to get that density increase. But they have to have affordable housing as part of the project.
So in this particular case, have they reached the points that would satisfy the requested height?
So the height is different. The height is part of the planned unit development process,
All right,
and y'all have the ability to vary that height through that process.
okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Are we required to make adjustments based upon this, or is it simply something we can do?
Required,
Meaning they're looking to basically make 1 parking space per unit from 1.75. If they meet all these points, are we required to allow that, or is this merely a guideline and a suggestion?
that is so separate out the parking and the height from the community-oriented development. They're separate. The parking and the height are things that you can vary as the Board of Adjustment through the planned unit development process. So if it wasn't an affordable housing project and they were just building apartments, And I'm pretty sure you guys have had apartment complexes where they asked for variation in those two things. It's pretty usual. So that through the planned unit development, you look at those two things and decide as a board whether or not you want to vary them.
So there's a difference between like height standards and parking space standards, which are more that essentially you can vary through the PUD.
Right.
But then when you're dealing with density and the amount of units on the parcel, that through the community development standard allows some density bonuses based on the affordability of the units, right? So they can get more units on the thing.
Correct.
One thing I'm trying to just make sure and be clear on is that grid, since they comply with that grid, that doesn't give them a special right to require an adjustment,
No.
parking and height.
Right, no, that just means that they can have more dense, they can have more units on the property as,
It's a zoning thing, not a HUD thing.
right.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got one other question. I don't know if you can answer this, but do you have any sense from having dealt with affordable housing situations in the past that by their nature, they require less parking than other developments?
So I don't review affordable housing projects, and that answer might be better, it might be better answered by the applicant, but I will say the majority of, I think, multifamily projects that you guys do see ask for a parking reduction. So.
Okay. Any more questions? All right. Seeing none, thanks. Good morning, Mr. Allen, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, board members and staff and those in the audience. Ms. Phillips, can you confirm whether there were any standing applications or requests for witness applications?
There were not.
There were not. My name is Derek Allen. I'm with Allen, Stahl, and Kilborn. We are the attorneys for the applicant here. The applicant here is Mountain Housing Opportunities. We think Mountain Housing Opportunities has put together a thoughtful, community-oriented development that will bring 159 units of much-needed affordable housing to Buncombe County. One of the things that we read about and hear about all the time is our lack of housing, a lack of affordable housing, and this does that in a very meaningful way. We think it meets all the applicable standards. We think that it aligns with the county's comprehensive plan. I appreciate Ms. Phillips and staff's work on putting this together. In terms of our team, I want to make a couple of introductions. The developer obviously is Mountain Housing Opportunities. Justin Tuttle is here, and I'll have him come up and sit beside me and tell you a little bit about the vision here. Our engineer on this project is Warren Sugg. The traffic impact analysis was done by RFK engineers, Jason Clapp. We did host a community meeting for this project. Again, those aren't required in the county, but we like to do them. We had that earlier in August, and we think that's important because it allows for us to understand what the community wants, what they expect, what they need, what questions they might have. And at that, we had one participant who showed up, and we answered questions which were centered around kind of the typical questions we get with multifamily development, traffic, water, access to fire services, what the definition of affordable housing means, and some other questions. I would like to introduce at this time Justin, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself and this project in particular.
I'll swear you in first, so please raise your right hand and state your name. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Justin Huddle. I've worked with Mountain Housing Opportunities, have about 10 years of development experience, specifically in affordable housing. Housing Opportunities has been around since 1988 in the county surrounding region. We seek to build better homes, neighborhoods, communities, and in these service areas that we operate. And we think our vision is to basically, if you're able to work in this area, that you be able to afford to live here. One thing to note about this is that it's in a QCT, which is a qualified citizens tract. We're targeting 60% affordability. We're targeting 60% affordability for the neighborhood or for this development. The QCT, by definition, has 50% of the households in the area earning below 60% area median income, so it will be serving the majority of the residents within this area. So looking forward to bringing the much-needed affordable housing to the community.
Thanks, Justin. And if there are any questions now or later on about affordable housing and those requirements, Justin's here to answer questions about those things specifically. At this time, I'd like to call up Warren Sugg from Civil Design Concepts to walk us through the site plan and compliance and also the deviations that we're asking for related to this development.
Please raise your right hand and state your name.
Warren Sugg.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Sugg, before you get started walking us through the site plan, if you could give us a little bit about history about your work history, education, qualifications to testify here as an expert.
Absolutely. So my name is Warren Sugg. I work for Civil Design Concepts. We're a local civil engineering firm. I've been with Civil Design Concepts since October of 2014. Before that, I was in the Raleigh market for 16 years. Before that, I went to North Carolina State University and got a civil engineering degree and passed my professional engineer's license in 2005. So I've been at this for about 25 years, give or take now, doing site civil design.
Have you been qualified to testify as an expert in front of any quasi-judicial board?
Yes, this board and others.
At this time, we would move Mr. Sugg in front of this board and tender him as an expert in civil engineering and the application and compliance of the development ordinance to this project.
And we accept you as an expert.
Thank you. So thank you all for having me today. Thank you to Mountain Housing. We're really excited. This is, I've lost count, but probably project number 12 or so that we've helped Mountain Housing Opportunities on over the last few decades, and we think they do great work in the community. So when they came to us and looked at this site, I'll just walk you through the development plan as well as the application. So as mentioned by staff, it is 159 residential units. That's happening over three sites there, three structures. We do have one accessory structure, which is kind of a picnic amenity type area, and I'll point to that in the site plan in just a moment. We do have at least 20 feet between all the different buildings. We are asking for that height of 55 feet on a couple of those structures. We do have a few retaining walls on site. Most of those can be located and named out in sheet C301. There's a wall chart there. The highest one being 18 feet. We went on and just said as tall as 20 feet on the application just to make sure we were covered. We've got about 5 acres of total impervious on this site and about 6.5 acres of area that would be the full build out. Going through the application, as you get to the burden of proof number 1, this is an affordable housing project, so 100% affordable, and that also shows up in the community-oriented design chart, the number 1 item as being 100% affordable units rented under the guidelines of Affordable Housing Act. So that's worth 140 points. That's a big point getter. Number 2 item, speaking to public welfare, we've got public water that's coming by way of City of Asheville Water Department and sewer allocation by MSD, and we actually have phenomenal pressures and flows here. Number 3, in the areas of adverse effects and surrounding properties, noise, odor, glare, vibration, glare. We do have a landscape buffer that we're showing on the site plan that surrounds all 3 sides of the project. The only thing we're not buffering right now is Old County Home Road, where we have our access point, but we do have landscape buffer that we're showing on all the other sides. Our egress and ingress is coming by way of Old County Home Road. Because this project is more than 75 residential units by Buncombe County Code, we had to do a traffic impact analysis. That's part of the submittal, but it was also went through NCDOT's review and through county scoping. So that was done by Jay Clapp. That was also reviewed by DOT, and we're given that final determination letter, which is in your report, and I'll speak to in just a few moments. As you look at item 6 of the application, we do have exterior lighting that will be meeting the safety standards and zoning ordinance. We'll also have a monument sign that'll be out front to give waymaking and help people get in and out of the site. Number 7 is about open space and landscaping, access ways, pedestrian ways. We do have a number of different amenities here, from picnic pavilions, outdoor seating areas, playground, pedestrian connectivity, and the preservation of quite a bit of streams and wetlands. While we're on that streams and wetlands, there was a streams and wetlands environmental impact study done here, and we do know where those streams and wetlands are, and we've tried to minimize the impact of those as much as possible, which is what we're called on to do, and we are called to preserve as much of it as we can, which we're doing. Further on past this, we would certainly have to go to the Corps and DEQ for any kind of permits for impacts, but I did want to just point out the preservation there. As mentioned earlier, these are 3-4 split, which means 3-story on one side, 4-story on the other for one of those buildings, and then 4-5 for the other 2. The building 2000 and building 3000 are the 4-5 split buildings, whereas building 1000 is the 3-4 split. Item 10 of the plan unit development application, it speaks about who's managing, who's developing. So it is Mountain Housing Opportunities. They've been in the market for a number of years, as spoken to earlier, and they will be helping with the development and management, along with their other partners in the deal. Item 11 starts to talk about the density, and that probably takes us to a little bit of that community-oriented development sheet. So R3 has the 12 units per acre, but with that community-oriented design and going through those point systems, you can start to increase some of that, and mainly that affordability is a main stay there. But with this 159 units, that gets us to 21.4 units per acre through that community-oriented development.
So, the minimum you can have a community-oriented development is 15 years of affordability, but as part of their points, they are proposing 45 years. So we're going to change that condition to say 45 years. Okay. So does that make sense? You have to have a minimum of 15. You get extra points in that matrix if you do additional years, and that's what they did. 30 additional years for 30 points.
Thanks for clarifying.
And then number 18 on the application speaks to parking and loading. As mentioned, we do have the traffic impact study that was completed. Our access point is off of Old County Home Road. We are trying to line that up with a driveway that's across the street, which is the recommendation of good traffic study and just good modeling of coming in and out. As you come into the site, the first choice you get to make is to make a right-hand turn, which would go to the amenity areas first, where there are some parallel spaces. You then can continue around. to the south and east, and you make your way to buildings 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000, plus the parking that's associated with those units. If you go back towards the entrance, you do have an opportunity to go left and go to the lower side of building 1,000 where there is some parking down there as well as a turnaround area. While we're looking at the site plan, I just point to, there's a blue area that's shown near the intersections of Wren Drive and Old County. That's stormwater, so we recognize we'll have to take care of some stormwater here on site. We also have some stormwater that will be below grade in those parking lots to help with each of those buildings and their parking lots. And then in the sort of middle of the site, the area where you see we have a couple retaining walls and you see a line that says SB on it, that's stream buffer. And we're trying to stay away from the stream and the wetlands that are in that area. So that's why we've put some walls in to keep us from grading towards those. You'll also see the call out just beside the parallel spaces for the playground, the picnic pavilion. You'll see a few outdoor seated areas. And then also on the back side of building 3,000, you see some additional seating area. Also have quite a bit of sidewalk connectivity throughout the site to help folks be able to traverse, but also just be able to get some exercise if they so choose to. And that does take you out to Old County Home Road as well. If you were to flip to C301, you'll start to see some of the grading and erosion control. Now, granted, this is still preliminary level for the Board of Adjustment, but we recognize we'll have to go get those formal permits from Victoria and from Jason here in the county for grading and erosion control and stormwater review. And then the last couple pages, you do see storm again, and then you see the water and sewer. And as mentioned before, we recognize we'll have to go to City of Asheville for our formal water approval and MSD for our formal sewer approval. Any questions for me?
Question on the sidewalk. Will the sidewalks proceed all the way to a public transportation shelter?
So they get all the way out to Old County, and then we're not proposing new sidewalks along Old County or New Leicester, but they have an opportunity to get out there where it is public right of way.
And are there existing sidewalks on Old County and Leicester?
I'm not 100% at this exact spot where those existing ones are.
Okay.
I can go on my phone and look at aerial, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. You think that you can appreciate the reason for the questioning? You're going to come with a request for lesser parking with the presumption that these folks would use public transportation. The ease by which they can get to the public transportation is my concern.
Right. And I know earlier there was a conversation about just past history or some precedent on parking. We can certainly let MHO speak to that. Those ones that we have been a part of and other projects as well, a parking reduction for affordable has been a pretty consistent request. And they can probably speak to more of the demographics of who all has cars and how many cars they might have. But it is not unusual from a planning standpoint to have one-to-one for senior housing and for affordable housing. That's can be pretty common.
Having been the one that made that comment, I was going to follow up on how are we going to get to the public transport, which is what permits that reduction, both from an ADA standpoint as well as just a practical, hey, we don't need cars, but we need to get there. But it also does bring up another question, which is a person with a service dog. Where do they exercise and relieve that dog on this plan?
So I want to repeat back the question. So the question was, a person with a service dog, where do they
Relieve and
relieve the
exercise.
dog, and where do they also recreate?
Right, because what I see is a wetland, and we don't want that in the wetland, I'm sure, but have you anticipated someone with a service dog
We,
in
we
140, 159 units?
yeah, we certainly try to design these sites to be across the board for all different users. It's a great question. There's definitely some spaces that are left that if we needed a small dog park, obviously I'd want to check with MHO and make sure there's not some other concern there, but I think there are some areas that could be for a small dog park, which should be some recreation for the dog and potentially relief. And then as far as, connectivity, there is a good bit of sidewalk that's along the roads that get you from the lowest parking lot all the way along our road up to each of the different buildings and parking spaces. So I think there is some connectivity there, and it does actually connect you to each of the buildings to the parking. So I think there is some good connectivity that allows recreation if those folks choose to use those paved areas.
So specifically, just to be really clear, a person with a service dog can walk out of this property and get to a bus stop on sidewalk.
That's the bus stop. It's adjacent to.
Okay? So maybe this is a graphic that we could pull up. I guess the red dot represents the bus stop. And maybe we could pull that up for everybody to see, but it looks like to me that's in very, very close proximity to our site.
Where's the red dot?
I was thinking, I was reading it was like 2,400 feet or something like that, but I don't know from like which building they started at, or
I mean,
is it the property line and goes down the highway? That's what I'm
I'm
wondering.
fine with the reduction in parking under the theory that they could use public transportation, but there needs to be a means to access it for a person with an ADA concern.
Looks like that's the WE route, the New Leicester and Art Station, Asheville Mall, Walmart, VA. So, and that route is blue, and it goes all the way around Old County Home Road, up by the Walgreens, hits by the Ingalls, Mount Carmel, circles
Great.
back down. So,
Can they access it from the building? On a sidewalk? I think that's the question. Because I don't see it on the site map, but it might be the way I'm reading it.
tell you what, give me one moment to look at aerial imagery, and I'll figure out how far it is. We've got a sidewalk that goes out to the curve of the road that is approximately 100 feet from the intersection of New Leicester and Old County, so I feel like it's pretty doggone close, but let me find out for you.
Yeah, it's the adjacent property. See if you can find the sidewalk on it. And a couple more details on that bus route. That bus runs every hour on the hour. Yeah. Sure. You can swear me in and we can introduce this as well. It's up on the screen right now.
Yeah, but we haven't seen any of this, so, how about you get sworn in?
Sure.
And then we actually, follow the rules.
Please raise your right hand and state your name.
Derek Allen.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By measurement of me looking on aerial imagery where the bus stop is, where the existing driveway is, where this parcel line is, and where our sidewalk concludes to Old County, I'm going to say you're less than 50 feet away from the bus stop. It may be as close as 25.
And do you intend to have a sidewalk connecting it?
Right now, we have shown a sidewalk out to Old County Home Road.
Understood. Okay.
We would certainly entertain a sidewalk with NCDOT. They would have to approve it. It's their road. We could do a three-party encroachment agreement, or in this case, a two-party encroachment agreement, that we build it, they take it over and maintain it within their right-of-way, but they have to agree to it. But I understand the question, and I understand the intent.
Thank you.
Let me just pick up on that specific issue. Would you be willing to accept the modification to the request that said basically says you will make every effort to get NCDOT to agree to a sidewalk?
I'll go a step further than that. I just discussed it with the client, and we will commit to putting the sidewalk there, provided that NCDOT allows us to do so.
Okay, great, thank you. Can you add that to the list of,
Is your client going to maintain, because DOT may say, yes, you can put the sidewalk in, but DOT's not going to maintain it. So is your client going to maintain that sidewalk for the duration?
If we get a deal with NCDOT, they will have maintenance responsibilities outlined in that deal.
But yeah, just from historically dealing with DOT and sidewalks in the county, they normally do not want to be maintaining sidewalks.
Yeah, we won't have any problem maintaining the sidewalk because that will benefit who we're trying to serve. You know, again, get back to where we are. The MHO is in the business of providing affordable housing for those who need it most. And the reduction in parking here isn't to put more units on because we're trying to make more money off of tenants. It is to provide housing for those folks. And the reduction in the parking units are commensurate with other MHO properties because so many of those tenants will rely on public transportation. One of the things that's appealing to a site like this for MHO is that it's adjacent to a bus route that runs every hour and runs from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. So yes, contingent on NCDOT approving it, we will put the sidewalk in and we'll agree to the maintenance of that sidewalk that's on the property.
So just, I don't have a topo here, but if you went from that playground and just simply made a path to the back of that traffic stop, that would accomplish the same thing, and you wouldn't need NCDOT, and you do it all on your own property. Is there anything topographically that creates a problem?
Would you repeat that? I just want to follow the site plan. You're at the playground.
I'm at the playground, and just draw a straight line to the proposed pedestrian shelter at existing public transit stop. You're on your own property, you're right on it. Is there any reason you couldn't just put a path that gets you there? Then when you don't have to deal with NCDOT.
So there's a sidewalk. Yes, we can move the sidewalk if you'd like. Yeah, move it. That's fine.
Whatever works for you, but I would like to see either best efforts if you're working with the DOT, or just some way to get an ADA person with a dog to the bus.
Got it.
Or people with children to the bus.
Yes.
So just so we're clear for conditions, what exactly are we proposing?
Can we do
I think the official request is connect a sidewalk to the bus.
I think in backing out, getting a little bit more generally, I think we can accomplish both those suggestions. I think that's a great suggestion with one condition that would read, the applicant will provide direct access to the adjacent property that currently is the site of the existing WE1 bus station, bus stop.
In a manner that permits a person, an ADA person with children, to wait at the bus stop. Whatever words you want to say, we all know where we're trying to go.
And you can just add ADA compliant connection.
Okay, we will try to work something, and I will share that once I have it.
Thanks, Kurt.
One question that I have, I don't know who's the best person to answer this, but getting back to this subject of dogs, and not necessarily service dogs, any kind of dogs. Do you, when somebody walks out the front door of their house, and I assume there are sidewalks that go from like one building to another building, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's sidewalks that are shown and called out on the site plan, the C201 sheet.
Okay, between the sidewalks and the street, is there grass?
In many locations, the sidewalk abuts curb and parking, or goes right up to the building itself.
Okay, my concern, the reason I'm asking is we have a dog and we walk the dog every day, and dogs really don't like to do what they do on cement. They really like to do what they do on grass. And ideally, if I had a dog, I would rather not have to walk like a really long distance to find any grass, because my dog might not want that to happen. So I'm not sure what my question is, but is there a way, how do I ask this question? Is there a way of having grass when somebody exits the front door of their apartment building, so that if they took their dog for a walk, there would be grass?
Yeah, so as it is today, as people walk out of their units, Unit 1,000, Unit 2,000, Unit 3,000, they have a choice. They can stay on the paved sidewalk, or they could go right or left as soon as they come out from under the building, and they could become into a mulch area, into a grass area. They could go to nature if they so choose to, if
Okay.
they wanted to get off the paved surface.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
I guess the backup question is, are dogs allowed? You know, they may not even allow dogs.
Yeah, that's true, I kind of assumed that in a multifamily building, you'd allow dogs, but do you allow dogs?
This is what I thought.
That is a good question.
Yes,
Yes.
dogs
they-
are allowed.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right, so, Mr. Allen, did you have any other points to make, or?
I don't think so unless there are questions from
For
this
Warren?
board or staff.
I think we've got Warren then, thank you. And then who's the next person?
Could you speak to the recommendations from the traffic study as well as the NCDOT comments on that traffic study? Just provide the board with a recap of what the assessment revealed.
Yes, sir. So the traffic impact study was completed by RFK Engineers. It was dated April 4th, 2005, sent to Chris Medlin. And it's a lengthy document. I did print out the first 22 pages of it, which is the executive summary. They studied the following intersections: NC 63 and Old County Home Road, which is signalized, Old County Home Road and Ben Lipton Road, which is unsignalized. They looked at the existing 2025 traffic conditions, the future 2028 no-build traffic conditions, so if we were not to build, what's still going to happen, and then the future 2028 build traffic conditions, which would be our development plus any other new development in the area. With that, they did their study. They looked at existing traffic. They've got their looks at whether this particular project at 159 would cause any queuing delays or issues. You can see that on page 3 of their executive summary. The mid-rise multifamily housing, which is the 221 ITE traffic code, is going to be 712 vehicular day average trips. The peak hour, so your AM peak hour being that 7 to 9 a.m., or your PM being the 4 to 6, you would have 13 vehicles entering the site and 45 vehicles exiting the site in the morning. You would have 38 vehicles entering the site and 24 vehicles exiting the site in the PM peak hour. From that and their assessment, their future build, they say in order to estimate the traffic conditions with proposed site development, the site-generated trips were added to the future 2028 no-build traffic volumes to determine the future build volumes. And then it refers you to figure A6 in their capacity analysis. If you look at page 4, they go over the levels of service, what an A through F is. And if you look at page 5 of their study, the existing 2025 conditions, the AM peak is a B, which is pretty high. A is just like you get in class. B is very good, and then the PM is B. The no build, so if you did not do anything with our development, the AM would still drop to a C, the PM would still stay at a B, and then with our development, it still stays C and B. The only delay goes from 21.1 seconds to 22.13 seconds in the morning and 14.2 seconds in the afternoon to 16.1 seconds in the afternoon. So about a second to 2 seconds of extra delay because of our 159 units. And then that's just the study.
Yeah, just what's the assumed growth rate, or again, you said build and no build. What's the assumption that's applied to that? And then the follow-up question is that a state level? I think we all know how much development is occurring on Lester Highway.
So it is told to them by NCDOT. Usually you're seeing around a 1.5% to 2% increase. And in the case of this one, I want to make sure that I say it just the way they said it as well. Give me 1 second and I'll find that. While I'm also thinking about that, the NCDOT final determination letter was May of 21st, 25. And they concurred with RFK's requirements or their TIA. And they had no changes in the AM or PM and had no concerns with peaks. I'm gonna look for that percent for you though.
As I read it, I think it was 2%, but I'm just getting to the question of when the state says whatever number it is, are they taking into account the local traffic pattern, or are they applying a state number?
Well, it's the local DOT that tells them that percent. So, Chris
Okay.
Medlin and Nick Diego are local, so they're looking at it specific to regions of our specific region.
All right.
They're the one that tells.
All right, so that gives me a little more confidence that the number is something that reflects what's going on in the local community. All right, thank you, thank you. Unless other board members need to go through the report, that was what I'm trying to get at. Sorry, because Lester Highway is getting busy.
Very busy.
Okay, any more questions for Mr. Sugg? All right, Mr. Allen, if you want to go ahead.
That concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any additional questions.
I guess for me, one of my questions is why the 55 versus 30 feet? You know, because that's pretty, it's almost double. I'm sure other people are thinking about that too.
I'll ask Warren to address why the height is requested. I will address the policy rationale for why we believe that that waiver is appropriate in this instance.
So the 55 is highest adjacent grade to the peak of the roof. And we go over this quite a bit in these meetings and other just discussions. The county's definition of that height is you got to go all the way to the very tip top of the roof. So we have 4 stories and we have a 5-story side. Taking it from that 4-story side, if you were to take just a pretty common 10-foot floor to floor, you've already gotten to 40 feet just in your livable space, if you will. And now you need to put a roof on it. And it's pretty common to have peak roofs in multifamily development and anything that's not usually right here in downtown. Certainly, you could consider doing a flat roof in this spot. I think that would stick out sorely. Not an architect, I don't profess to be that, civil engineer, but things like snow loads, the aesthetics, everything else really start to weigh into that. And then when you think about just the development as a whole with a unit like that, you have the breezeways that come in and then you split off units. You get quite a bit of width and just kind of common roof construction. Once you go from the left side to the right side and you pick up quite a bit of vertical feet to it. So that's the reason why it jumps another 15 feet just in roof alone.
And one of the things that we go round and round, and I know staff knows this, and we've talked at length with Savannah and Nate about it in particular, is that probably needs to be changed, the measurement, including the allowable height as well as how it's measured in other jurisdictions where we practice. It's not the tippy top of the tallest part of the roof. It is the ceiling of the highest livable floor, for example, which would help here. The thing that I wanted to address, though, is the waiver justification. And built into the PUD 1 requirements and the PUD 1 ordinance is giving this board discretion to approve waivers of things like building height and specifically building height. And the thing that the ordinance says on that is that provided that unique elements of the development impose requirements for additional height that are not universal throughout the zoning district. That's really what we're looking for here. For us, three things really jump out. One is this is a community-oriented development that kind of blows through the points table. You guys don't see a lot of those things, and they are encouraged. And so one of the things from a policy standpoint that we maintain that we believe was the impetus and the policy reason for having this to begin with is it wants to encourage density where that exists. That is only going to make sense in the R3 district where water and sewer service are available. If you look at the underlying zoning district definition, some areas within the R3 district will have no public water and sewer service, and thus will primarily be suitable for single-family residential. Other areas within the district will have public water and/or sewer service available and will thus be suitable for higher density uses such as multifamily residential units. And that's what we have here. So that's really the second thing we think sets this apart as something that is unique and not applicable to all R3 developments. And the third one is, I'm going to end where I began, which is from a public policy standpoint, Buncombe County Commissioners, our county, our city, just about every jurisdiction in Western North Carolina, their number one priority is increasing the availability of housing of all types, specifically including affordable housing. And that's what this is. And we believe that alone probably justifies waiver of height here to make this kind of development work with traditional building methods and not something that's a wonky flat roof or something else that looks out of character with the area, is more difficult and more expensive to build, and is probably less desirable for the future tenants.
Any other follow-up questions for that?
Warren, this is a clarification. It does look like, as you explained, we normally don't see the 4-5 splits. Those are they're not regular in our applications here, but it does look like you've got about 50 feet of fall across this site overall, and you don't have a room for a fourth building, so therefore your increase in story height for those two buildings. Is that correct?
That's right, and
Okay.
just the presence of streams and wetlands, trying to preserve that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Warren. I think we're done. And then you're done presenting?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. All right. So we'll close. Go
I
ahead.
would check and see if there's anybody that wishes to speak as a witness.
All right. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak as a witness? Okay. So I see one hand in the back. If you can come forward. I see two hands in the back. So if we can have, the first one, if you can't go to the
If
podium,
you can go up to
please.
the podium.
And then what we'll do is we'll have you swear in, and then we can get the witness piece.
Please raise your right hand and state your name.
Michael Murray?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. I have a question about the traffic thing. When was that done?
Session,
Okay.
you can give a statement.
Okay.
Or
So I
present
would like to
facts.
know when that is done for the board, because if they did it in July, when the middle school of Irwin and the high school is not in session, because it is a really hard left turn out of that way to New Leicester Highway. So that's the one thing. Also, I'd like to state for the board that the bus stop is on their side, and that's it. It is not paved and it is not sheltered. So that's another thing that someone will have to figure out how to do that for them. And also the bus, I don't know if it's reliable. So that's all I want to say, that those questions for me, for you guys to think about, because that left turn is 20 seconds per car. And I'm done. I'm not used to this, so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Murray. All right, I saw a second hand, Russ Shirt, if you don't mind coming forward, and we'll do the same thing for you. We'll have you swear in, and then if you can, make your witness statement.
Please raise your right hand and state your name.
My name is David Barber.
Do you mind
swear or
speaking
affirm
into
to
the
tell the truth
microphone?
and nothing but the truth?
Microphone.
Yeah, thank you.
I do.
Thank you.
David Barber. My statement basically is
Can you focus it into the microphone, please?
into the microphone. Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay, thanks.
I'm not used to this either. Listened to the Zoom meeting that was held the other day, and unfortunately, it was a Zoom meeting, the community meeting, and some of us are not technologically apt to be able to sign in and be able to talk at that meeting. So there was not much ability to ask questions then. So we are concerned in the neighborhood. My property directly borders the top building in its parking lot. We're concerned about the fact that the neighborhood that exists now is going to completely change, which is common in building and developments of that sort, but we were not expecting it. Mr. Poulos and Mrs. Poulos have attempted to have the zoning changed on that piece of property several times in the past, and the board always turned their request down. Now, because it's affordable housing, we are concerned that even though conditions are exactly the way they were when they were turned down before, the public housing aspect of it throws a big light into the favor of the request to change the zoning, and that's understandable. But the neighbors that are here, there is not any neighbor here that is in favor of this change. The fact that for the history of that neighborhood, it's always been a forested community. The housing that was on it, we considered ourselves lucky to be in a housing or in a forested housing area, and now that's all coming to an end. Just across the street on Wind Drive, 10 acres sold to one person, one house. And now, right across the street, it's being proposed to cut down all of the forest and replace that forest with 3 buildings, 50-plus feet high, that my house will be looking straight down on top of. There's not going to be buffer enough that they would create. I fortunately have a few trees in the way, but that's not going to change the lighting situation. You're taking a situation where there is lighting, apparently, that's going to light up that whole community. The person that's building a house is going to be within 100 feet of all that housing and all that parking. Nothing he can do about it. We recognize that it's probably going to happen. The street situation is one that's very concerning, because you would have to be on the road, Old County Home Road, in the morning when the school traffic is there. The school traffic is there from 7 o'clock till usually about 9 in the morning, and from 2:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As it is, when we come out of our driveway, the traffic backs up all the way from Lester Highway, around the curve on the Old County Home, all the way over to Ben Lippin Road. There is no 20-second get in and out of that driveway during those times, because it backs up in both directions. Backs up to go to the school after they drop off their kids, those that do that. When they're coming back out, you cannot get on that highway unless somebody's very nice to you to allow you to get out. The way the conditions are right now, there is a wooded area between our driveway and over around to the curve that takes you on the Lester Highway. You can't see 50 feet down the road to see traffic that's coming at you. DOT issue, I'm sure, but who's going to take care of that issue? When they build their new driveway, how much are they going to be impacted by the traffic, as well as the people that are currently there being impacted by the traffic? It's something that you just can't look at the road itself without looking at the condition of the side of the road. There's a great big huge rock area there that was built up when what was the food line, they cut down the highway or cut down the woods and dug out the side of the mountain, which took my forest from that side of my house. And all that's over here on this property now. And it's sitting there and it's just one big, huge 50 to 75-foot pile of rock that is now overrun with trees that block the view of the highway. You can't see the view. We've had situations where we'd be in the middle of the road exiting their property and somebody come from where those trees are and just barely miss us.
Okay.
And we've had to immediately jerk back into the highway. Motorcycle came around us and wrecked because he was coming too fast and almost hit us.
All right,
When we
so
pulled out, we couldn't.
thank you for your testimony. Do you have other, like, besides traffic? Because I just want to remind you from my opening statement, traffic is outside of our purview.
Understood.
So outside of that, other witness testimony would you like to share?
I would be concerned about the water runoff. As it is right now, there is a creek that runs through the very bottom of the territory that comes through that area into a culvert that currently serves our road and the existing road that belongs to that property right now.
And so for that, I need to limit you there because you, I don't think you would be tendered as as an expert witness like Mr. Sugg with his qualifications, right?
I'm not an expert at this point to be able to qualify what they are going to do to ensure that that culvert is still adequate as far as water runoff and everything is concerned.
Okay.
It's a situation where we just replaced that culvert 4 years ago because of water runoff. We don't know whether or not this new situation is going to create an even more or less potentially dangerous situation because of the water runoff from that creek.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your,
All right, thank you.
Paul, did you have a, yeah?
Yes, I've got a question for you. In cases like this, we have three options. We can approve the request, we can deny the request, or we can approve the request with changes, okay?
Okay.
If it were up to you, what would you ask the board to do?
I would ask the board to deny the request, but based on the history of it having been denied before, I would, if the board is intent on approving the request, I would ask that the board make sure that the entrance and exit from the property is sufficient. There are no sidewalks in front of that property. Wherever this, I mean, I know where the bus stop is, that there is no sidewalk there. There's no sidewalk anywhere close to it. There's the Papa's Pizza right across the street. There, the nearest sidewalk is going up the hill, up Lester Highway.
Okay,
Yeah.
so not to cut you off, but I think we addressed that with the conditions, so I think that concern's addressed.
That's a concern. We want to make sure that everybody that knows the territory knows what's going to happen with the whole neighborhood. Not just my neighborhood, but everybody there. The school, we've already discussed it. There's no reason to go any further with it. But if your conditions are met as far as traffic and all of that, there's nothing that any of us can do to say we don't want it there other than say we don't want it there. But
Okay.
that's normal. I understand that. But,
Thank you very much for coming forward today.
thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other neighbors? I see one other hand, black shirt. And if I can, while you're walking up, just remind folks that traffic is out of our control on what we can stipulate. So if you can, go ahead and swear in, Griffin.
All right, please raise your right hand and state your name.
Alexander Botranchuk.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
There's a couple concerns that come into play. I think foot traffic is going to be one of the big ones. I live on Lester Highway. I have for pretty much my entire life. And I actually live at a local apartment complex right off of Lester Highway. A lot of Leicester is not set up for foot traffic. I've had multiple instances of people crossing the roads. There's no crosswalks. There's not sidewalks set up in a lot of areas. The reality is, if it's going to be affordable housing, we will be getting a lot of foot traffic. I live in an apartment. I understand that housing is 100% necessary. We do run into an aspect of, foot traffic, but also a lot of foot traffic that shouldn't be in that area. There's schools there. There are going to be young children there. The apartments that I live at, we've constantly run into everything from vehicles being broken in because of the foot traffic that is coming through the area, and we're not right up against the road. I mean, it's going to be, we're 250 yards away from Leicester Highway. So we've already run into a lot of problems, anything from break-ins to, just in reality, sketchy situations with people that are just, walking in that area. Leicester Highway is not set up for that. The other thing is, I do understand affordable housing is 100% necessary. It is interesting that if the project has been denied on multiple occasions, the only distinction now being that it is now affordable housing, it does raise quite a few questions and quite a few concerns for local residents. I've lived in Asheville my whole life, so this definitely does bring up a few concerns, especially being that they're, leveling entire forests when, a small business has trouble growing just to do anything basic, but then when an apartment complex comes up, going up with, 200 plus units, in this case 159, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of opposition to it as long as the distinction is that it's affordable housing. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. No. No. Thank you. Yeah, there's no follow-up. All right. Anybody else from the public? I see two more hands, one more hand. And then I just want to say to the public, thank you very much for showing up and expressing your concerns.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Karen
Please
Braswell.
raise your right hand and state your name.
My name is Karen Braswell.
And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I appreciate everything everyone else has said. Unfortunately, I'm the female in the group, and I try not to get emotional, but I will. My concern is with the, we are very fortunate in our area to have first responders and a fire department. I was on the Zoom call, and that was one of my biggest concerns, is being able to continue to protect us with an additional 159 units, which is 300 or 400 more people in that area, to be able to protect us from first responder point of view and from the city of Asheville and Buncombe County law enforcement. So that would be my big concern, as well as what everyone else has said today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming up. And I cry all the time, so, don't feel bad about crying.
Well, as a healthcare professional in this city, it's a concern.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, so we'll close that portion. Derek, do you want to do your closing statement?
I really don't have anything to add other than the policy pieces that we have put out there. This is the kind of project that we as a community talk about needing all the time. We read about needing it all the time, and here's one that a local provider is bringing to us for our approval. And we would ask that you see that public policy need and see that we have tailored this to fit with this particular project, and ask for your approval.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the public session and board discussion. Who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the primary issue here, we've talked a lot about affordable housing. Affordable housing is a strong need in our community. We also talked about traffic, and I can appreciate the witnesses who came forward, especially the gentleman who said he's lived there most of his life. Leicester Highway was probably not 5 lanes back then, it's maybe 2. Things have grown. That area is going to change. We can't stop growth. We do have to defer and look to the experts that the Department of Transportation utilizes. Thus my questions regarding traffic and how it's being projected and what we're going to do about it. I also think that we've solved some of the issues regarding the public transportation. There will be, subject to the Department of Transportation's agreement, there will be a means by which these residents can get to and use public transportation
Safely?
safely. I think Gabe's follow-up question got to the density issue. You can't put more units, you can't spread them out any further and reduce the heights of those buildings. The topography doesn't allow it. The wetlands don't allow it. And if we want to have grass for dogs, that won't allow it. So the reality is, we gotta go up. So bottom line is, I think we've reviewed all the issues, we've tried to identify where we can make adjustments, and therefore, I think we've made appropriate adjustments, and I'm in support.
Okay. Anybody else have comments?
I would say you gave an excellent summary. And I too am in support with, two caveats. One is that they affirmatively provide a place for service dogs to exercise and relieve. And two, that this proposed pedestrian shelter is actually built and it is appropriate. Well, you got the bus stop, which literally is a sign next to a tree on grass on the road. So when they say proposed pedestrian shelter, what I'm imagining is what we're expecting. You're waiting at a bus stop, there's a little roof over your head, and it's open on one side, and you can get to it. But they've put it on their plans, and they've said that they're gonna make it accessible, so those two things make sense to me.
I wanted to
I just
clarify, I thought
wanted-
it was just a sidewalk to the
So-
bus stop, no
So,
shelter.
Well,
yeah,
it says here, proposed pedestrian shelter, so they've got it on their plan, so they've already planned for it.
The only condition that I have is that the applicant shall provide ADA accessible and compliant access to the existing closest transit stop on Country Home Road. This shall either be internal to the development itself, or the applicant shall work with NCDOT to provide construction of a sidewalk along the NCDOT right-of-way that they shall maintain in perpetuity unless DOT accepts responsibility for maintaining the access. The applicant shall be responsible for maintaining the access to the bus stop.
Now, the plan calls out for a proposed shelter.
Mr.
So they've already
Weinstein is
addressed
correct. Yeah, I don't know if I can speak, but Mr. Weinstein is correct. We are proposing a shelter there, and Mr. Weinstein's comments were get the sidewalk closer to the shelter, which we can do.
Okay.
As long as we add the part about dog relief, I'm great. I think it's a great plan.
But again, I just want to be clear.
There's,
Okay, hold
That
on.
shelter is not a public bus shelter, is it, on your plan?
Right now, it's just a box on a piece of paper that says we're gonna put a shelter there. We'll need to work with DOT. I could see where they could say, we don't want the shelter in our right-of-way, at which point we may have to put it just inside of our property. But the point of having the shelter for people to be able to come to, get out of the weather and have access to with a sidewalk, we're willing to do.
I think the key point is we want to have the means by which these residents are able to get to the public-provided bus stop. The shelter is not at the public-provided bus stop. Therefore, there still is a gap that has to be bridged from the property to the bus stop. And if there is a shelter somewhere else to serve for people who are
So
sharing
just to
a ride-
clarify, we're in closed session, we're doing public, so do I need to stop and put it back to public, or what do we need to do?
no, I think you all are deliberating right now, and unless you need, you would need to reopen the public hearing if you were going to take additional evidence from the applicant regarding the shelter. I just wanted to point out to the board that one of the conditions that's usually standard in every application is that the development must be built to the site plan. So whatever site plan they have submitted, they need to build it to that. So if there is some, I guess,
Shelter indicated?
shelter, but if you need more specification as to what that is or not, I would suggest that you make that a condition if you so desire in moving forward. Because it seems like to me, I don't know what the shelter means, and I am not 100% sure of, so I think you may want more details on that.
Well, I'm assuming that the shelter would have to follow whatever the art standards are. There's a number of category as a bus shelter that they have in their standards. I think just the, I think if we just state that we want internal sidewalk access to this public transit stop, whether it's along DOT right-of-way and/or through internal connection, just so that it's there, period. Because they've got it on the site plan, they've committed to it. We just want to make sure that the pedestrian access goes to the transit stop.
That's correct. Mr. Quisenberry is correct. And Mr. Allen, your concern is covered in Mr. Euler's condition that he read out. I do want to put eyeballs on it before we put it into the order, but that shelter that's shown on the site plan that we've already committed to, we'll have to do that, and that's adjacent to that same area we're talking about.
So the shelter that's on the plan is sufficient to satisfy the needs of people who are waiting for a bus,
The sidewalk commitment is separate from the shelter that's shown,
correct?
and the shelter itself was designed to provide shelter for pedestrians that are headed to that bus stop.
That are headed to the bus stop.
We didn't articulate what that was. Gabe is aware of the codes, and maybe you might want to articulate what that means, but I assumed it would be the kind of
Well, it would
bus
be-
shelter you see.
It would be a bus shelter in conformance with whatever the Asheville Area Transit Authority requires, because that's the bus line, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, and they have a set of standards for covered shelters that, the developer and engineer can pick from that are approved, and they will have to go through an approval for that.
My question, Gabe, is this shelter appears to be on Old County Road. The bus runs on Lester Highway.
No, Old County.
And Old County?
Old County, there's an
Okay.
existing bus stop on Old
Got it.
County, yes.
All right, I feel better.
Okay.
And make sure we have the wording for the service dog exercise and relief area.
Dog, yeah, let's just generalize it to dog park. Can we do that?
It's fine.
Kurt, do we have verbiage around, dog capability, or do we need verbiage for that?
Well, I'm not sure if they have like common areas in the development that would, that are non-paved, whether that would be sufficient for places for people to relieve their dog. I don't know if there's like a specific ADA requirement for places. I think that like the sidewalk has to be a certain width or something like that to comply with the ADA, but I don't think there's any specific standards for service dogs. I would just think that there should be suitable areas for residents to walk their dogs and for the dogs to relieve themselves. Right, because that's kind of, we've had dog parks, we've had walking trails in developments. I've seen those things, but I've never seen anything specific towards a service dog.
So David, is that what you're asking for?
I'm just asking for staff to make sure that there is a place for the service dog to relieve itself and to play in a manner that is appropriate for a person who requires a service dog. Other than that, I'm comfortable with staff coming up with whatever they come up with.
So David, just for clarifying, if there is a quote dog park, and if we need to clarify that, we can talk about it. A dog park would satisfy the need of of a service dog, would it not?
A dog park could be 6 by 6. I don't know what a dog park is. I don't have a definition of that, but I'm comfortable that staff could come up with that.
Well, I also think Paul's questioning was, is there grass for the dog to go pee on? Kind of got answered, and that's,
Yeah, it's,
do you have to delineate a dog park? I really don't think we
I
need
don't
to
think
make
at our
that
level
rule.
we have to. I think staff can deal with that at the planning.
How about I propose some language and see if Mr. Euler's comfortable with it? The applicant shall provide one or more dog relief / play areas on the development site.
And that said site shall be depicted in, I guess you would need to submit an amended site plan, because I'm not aware of anything on the current site plan. Am I correct in that?
Correct, and we'll have to do that anyway for final approval.
I mean, does that sound all right, that we will put,
whatever staff comes up with is fine. I think you know the intent.
Well, no, I know the
No,
intent.
Kurt needs the verbiage.
My
verbiage.
worry is never the intent. My worry is the enforcement of said condition.
you.
So that's always where I'm trying to make sure that we're clear on what we're enforcing and whether it's within our scope to enforce. So I would,
So, I have a suggestion. Applicant shall provide an appropriate area for pets to relieve themselves and to be off-leash. Area should be enclosed. Area should be shown on the submitted master site plan.
Perfect.
did you write that out? Does that sound good to you, Dirk?
That sounds good. Can you
Okay.
send me that longer one on the connectivity so I can put eyes on it?
Yeah, I will send you both proposed conditions.
Thank you.
Can I, I have to just make a comment here. I'm just thinking about my dog, right? My dog is not fond of off-leash areas. I am not particularly fond of off-leash areas because there are some dogs that can be very aggressive. And if you get an aggressive dog in an enclosed off-leash area, there are going to be people who aren't going to want to bring their dogs into it because they're afraid of the aggressive dog who's off-leash. So my tendency would be not to say we're going to require an off-leash area. I mean, all I'm concerned about is that my dog is able to do what my dog needs to do.
So I'm also a dog owner, and I think I agree with you, some off-leash locations are not fun for my dogs, but I do like letting my dogs off-leash, having that capability. And you can choose whether you take your dog there or not.
Madam
Okay,
Chair?
well, I would say as long as there's another place for another place to take my dog that's not the off-leash area, I'm fine with it.
Madam Chair, how about we just take out the words off-leash out of what Ms. Phillips?
So the
Had-
applicant shall provide appropriate. The applicant shall provide an appropriate area for pets to relieve themselves, period. Area should be enclosed. Area should be submitted on the master site plan.
Agreed.
Enclosing implies off-leash, and a service dog is by definition not aggressive, or it's not a service dog. So I think that covers it.
Yeah, that's probably true, and
So just a note, if you leave the off-leash part out, it'll.
Your microphone's not on.
Just a note, if you leave the off-leash part off, it allows whoever is managing this apartment complex to make that decision, and that's probably appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, are you guys good? Anything else? Would anybody like to create a motion?
Madam Chair, based on the evidence presented to this board, including the following exhibits, the petitioner's application, the submitted development plan, the GIS maps, the staff report, the supplemental documents, including the TIA and the DOT letter of commentary, as well as the testimony presented at the hearing, I move that this board adopt the following findings of fact: that this matter was properly advertised, is within the board's jurisdiction, and is ripe for its consideration. That this application, together with any conditions proposed by staff and/or this board and agreed to by the applicant, if any, does meet the requirements for granting a special use permit contained in the Buncombe County Code of Ordinances, Section 78-321, subparagraph 3.
Okay, all in favor?
Need a second?
Oh, who's the
Second.
second? Yeah. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right.
Madam Chair, based upon the foregoing findings of fact and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that this requested special use permit be approved and that the order approving the permit be adopted and executed as presented and as modified in this meeting.
Okay, second? All right, all approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. Kurt, do you need a couple of minutes? Should we take a quick break, or are you ready?
I think I am ready. I know, I'll try to keep this brief.
And then for the folks that are leaving, thank you very much for showing up today and being part of the process.
All right, Madam Chair and members of the board, I have the following. This is for a PUD 1, Plan 1 unit development for PIN number 9629-26-3712 at 415 Old Country Home Road. This is on behalf of Mountain Housing Opportunities and Athena Poulos of Dacia, I guess LLC, who is the property owner, that findings of fact that this was properly noticed and advertised, that the parties withstanding and everyone has been given an opportunity to participate, that the proposed board finds that the special use permit in the application for PUD standards in 78678B6, that the land within the PUD will be under a single ownership or management by final approval, that the density is consistent with the intent of the district which it is located, that the land uses are compatible with and do not violate the intent of the zoning district. By the way, the zoning district in this case is R3. The proposed land use meets the following development standards, that the minimum lot size and requirements for setbacks do preserve the spirit and intent of the zoning district. The proposed height set forth in the application does comply with the spirit and intent of this section. With respect to the total development plan, the board finds the minimum distance between buildings will be adequate to preserve air, light, privacy, and space for emergency vehicles, Development does provide reasonable visual and acoustic privacy for all dwelling units. That the structures located within the perimeter will be set back from the property lines and right-of-ways adjoining streets in accordance with the provisions of the zoning ordinance. The board finds that the proposed parking does comply with the spirit and intent of this section. The board finds that the conveyance and maintenance of open space, recreational areas, and communally owned facilities are in accordance with the Unit Ownership Act of the State of North Carolina. That the board finds that the building envelopes are shown on the site plan and depict the maximum expanse of the proposed footprint. That pursuant to 78677G, the board finds that the proposed use will not adversely affect health or safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use, that the proposed use will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to public improvements in the neighborhood. The property will not have an adverse effect on surrounding properties due to noise, vibration, odor, or glare effects. Satisfactory ingress and egress of the proposed use of the property and structures has been provided. The provisions for off-street parking and loading areas where required with particular attention to section 78658 have been arranged for. Provisions for adequate and proper utilities have been arranged for. The provision for buffering, if deemed necessary, have been arranged for. The signs and the proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic safety, economic effect, and compatibility are in harmony with properties in the district. Playgrounds, open spaces, yards, and landscaping, access ways, and pedestrian ways with reference to location, size, and suitability have been arranged for. Building and structures with references are acceptable. Hours of operation are acceptable. that the following conditions are placed on the property. Mechanisms used to guarantee affordability must remain in place for a minimum of 45 years following the issuance of a building certificate of occupancy. Deed restrictions shall include these mechanisms. The project shall be constructed as depicted on the site plan. Prior to any land disturbing activities, the applicant must submit a site plan development permit indicating the location of the buildings and accessory structures, a commercial lighting plan, buffering landscaping. There are 9 conditions that are standard. This is the special one. The applicant shall provide ADA accessible and compliant access to the existing closest transit stop on County Home Road. This shall be either internal to the development or the applicant shall work with the NCDOT to provide construction of a sidewalk along the NCDOT right-of-way. Unless the NCDOT accepts responsibility for maintaining the access, the applicant shall be responsible for maintenance of the access to the bus stop in perpetuity. The applicant shall provide the appropriate areas for pets to relieve themselves. The areas should be enclosed. The areas should be submitted on the master subplan. The applicant must agree to these conditions prior to the commencement of site work. Based on the foregoing findings of fact, the board makes the following conclusions: that the applicant's request for a special use permit, together with the imposed conditions, meets each of the applicable requirements of the Buncombe County zoning ordinance. Now therefore, based on the foregoing findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Board of Adjustment finds that the applicant is hereby granted a special use permit to establish a PUD on the property as requested, subject to the conditions above, which are incorporated herein. This is the 13th day of October, 2025, or not October, how about August? 2025.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey, Brandon, is this your zip drive? Okay. All right.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. All right, Jillian, I think you're up. And you don't need to be sworn in because you're already sworn in. And then, Brian, are you ready? You're all set? Okay.
And it's gonna be Miss Osborne, but I'll do some.
Okay, Miss Osborne, welcome.
So the next case is ZPH 2025-00010. It's Case Cove Road Residential.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Jillian. Can you use a bigger voice, please?
Sure,
Thank you.
I'll try. I certify that this public hearing was properly noticed and all applicable parties were notified of the meeting in accordance with general statutes and county code. I ask that all applicant and staff materials be accepted into the record as evidence.
So accepted?
Okay. This is a review of the Case Cove residential project. Applicant is Adam Knobloch. Property is located at an unaddressed parcel on Case Cove Road, and the total acreage is 40.31 acres. The development will be serviced by public water and sewer. The property is zoned open use. The special use permit proposes a 35-unit residential development, all on one single parcel. The property will be accessed via private road off Case Cove Road. The surrounding zoning districts all consist of open use. The surrounding properties are mostly comprised of single-family residential with a few vacant properties. The applicant proposes no deviation through the PUD process. However, staff notes that the property appears to not meet standards of the subdivision ordinance, so subdivision of the property could not occur in the future without revisions to the plan. If approved by the board, staff recommends the following conditions of approval. No subdivision of land is proposed currently. Should a subdivision of land occur in the future, applicant understands that it may require the project to go back before the Board of Adjustment for review and approval. Additionally, it will go through the process of major subdivision review and approval. Project must be constructed as depicted on the site plan. Applicant must agree in writing to these conditions prior to commencement of site work. And just one more note for the applicant, I think they're proposing long-term rental, but if they at some point did short-term rental, that would require an additional special use permit for a vacation rental complex.
Okay. All right, any questions for staff?
One point of clarification, I believe this is private septic and not public sewer, is that correct?
Correct, that is correct, yes, we were gonna make that, I was gonna make that adjustment, because it's public
There's-
water.
Somebody spent a lot of money on a nice.
Public
report.
water and septic.
And
I'm
septic.
sorry, did I say sewer?
You did, you said public water and sewer. But thank you, Mr. Quizzico.
They
that was
usually
great.
go together, so.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, clarifications? All right,
Thank
Ms. Osborne, or who are we handing it
Madam
over to?
Chairman, Brian Golden, Taylor Osborne, she's a lawyer in our firm, Van Winkle Law Firm. We represent the applicant. Actually, Mr. Cole, Adam Knobloch, Mr. Cole, Bill Cole is the owner of is currently the owner of the property. He'll come in and introduce the property, but you all have seen the site plan. It's 35 smaller, one-bedroom, two-bedroom, single-story houses proposed for long-term rental, providing a different opportunity than what we just heard, and that is apartment complexes. They've had this land in their family for 40 years, and he'll be maybe even more. He'll get sworn in and talk about it. But the idea of the project is just an alternative, an affordable alternative to multifamily residential. Ms. Osborne's gonna do the presentation. We've got some of the presentation that's gonna come up, and then we will email it to county staff so that they can put it in the record.
Okay, and then do we need to make sure that people use microphones for recording? Okay.
Sorry.
So if we can, just be aware of that.
Yep, thank you.
And then it looks like the microphone can be taken out of the stand if you want to stand while you're doing that.
Okay.
I know I like standing. I have a standing desk at work, so I get it. All right, go ahead.
All right, so we'd go ahead and call Mr. Bill Cole as our first witness.
All right. Mr. Cole, please raise your right hand and state your name.
William Cole,
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cole, if you will just state your name for the board one more time.
Yeah, I'm William Cole, and I go by Bill. The other folks involved in this are my son, Ben Cole, and my stepson, Adam Knobloch.
All right, and how are you specifically involved in this project?
Yeah, so I'm the owner of the property at this point. My dad bought the 40 acres, I think in the 60s. So he's owned it ever since then. It's been in a forestry plan all that time. We've done one cutting of it maybe 20 years ago. And he passed away about 10 years ago or so, and I inherited it. So right now we have it in a LLC, but I'm the sole member and the sole owner of the current property.
And did you authorize Chris Rollins to submit an application for a special use permit to Buncombe County Planning and Development?
I did.
And have you reviewed that application?
I have.
And is the information therein true to the best of your knowledge?
Correct.
All right, and we've prepared a little bit of a slideshow that we're going to walk through here.
So this idea came to Ben and I really after the flood. We have a very nice piece of property that we thought with the flood and the housing crisis that's going on in the Inca-Caroline and Buncombe County area, that we could create a win-win situation whereby we build these smaller homes that would be more affordable, but yet nice. You probably haven't seen the setting, but it's absolutely beautiful, forested area, and topography is really conducive to what we're proposing as well.
And can you tell the board a little bit more about the proposed use of the property?
So we're proposing in 3 phases to build 35 smaller homes. There'll be a mixture of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. The 2 bedrooms will be 810 square feet, the 1-bedroom 600, and then we are proposing long-term rentals, not nightly rentals or anything like that. So the idea is building a community in the area.
And where's this property located?
Yeah, I don't have a pointer, but it's basically,
Squeeze in here for you.
yeah.
It's hard to see there.
Yeah, so it's it's bordered by the Case Cove Road and extends, I think that's Inca Lake Road. You access it, but it actually borders some residential area behind us there. But it's that wooded area basically minus, there's 5 acres of the land I sold to someone a few years ago that's located up in the lower corner of the area that's being depicted here.
So you mentioned that it bordered some residential areas. What have you done to advise your neighbors of the project and involve them in the development planning?
So we sent out a notice to all the contiguous property owners maybe a month ago and set up a Zoom call on August 2nd. We had Adam's phone number on there for people who couldn't make the call and wanted to have their questions answered or express their concerns or whatever. And we had about 6 or 7 people on the call, and Adam fielded calls from about 2 people as well. And we basically did this presentation for them and answered the questions.
All right, I'm going to pull up the site plan here. Can you describe the access to the property and any amenities that you have planned?
Yeah, so the access is off Case Cove Road. Right now, there's a logging road that is there that off that road, and you can drive back into the property. It's not a finished road. We'll have to do that, of course, but it's passable. And the plan is to do Marty's Way, the single road that goes, I guess, horizontally. Those would be the first 2 phases, and then the Aldine Street would be the 3rd phase. Our amenities, we have a lot of land that's not shown on this down below, And the plan there is to have a picnic table and a community area where people can get together. No danger of not having plenty of room for dogs to do their thing or walk here. And the goal is to try and have a community where people can get out in the woods and enjoy life.
All right, can you describe for the board some of the characteristics of the homes?
Yeah, so we've got some diagram. We identified a company near Louisville that's going to be basically sending us, they're not prefab, but basically partially built homes that basically look like this in terms of the square footage. The homes will be on foundations. It's not a mobile home type place, but we expect to have probably about 2/3 of them being 1 bedroom and 1/3 being the 2 bedroom as depicted here. I won't necessarily walk you through all that, but. And these are some of the finishes we're looking at. The goal here is to make these nice, yet affordable. And each unit will have a little porch. The 2-bedroom will have a much bigger porch so people can go out and enjoy the woods and the environment.
All right, and what's your estimated timeline for this phase development?
So assuming we get approval here today, the plan would be in October, because there's some more things that apparently need to be done before we can proceed. But to do 7 units to start, beginning in October, and then we'll do 12 more and basically finish out Marty's Way in 26 and 27. And then in 28, we'll put in assuming things are going well and successful, we'll put in the other road and finish out another 12 units at that time.
I'm gonna pull up real quick does this better depict kind of the phases that you've described there?
Yes, yeah, that's
Okay.
good. Yeah, so the green is the first phase, the blue is the second phase, and then I don't know if that's magenta or what that other color is, but that's the third phase.
And who's planned to ultimately own the property?
Yeah, so the plan is to put it into a different LLC called Ease Asheville, and that'll be the only owner of the property. We'll have 3 members, which are 2 of my sons and myself. I'll have the lion's share of the membership, but because I'm the one that has the money to develop this. But it'll be a single owner.
All right, that would be all my questions if the board has any they'd like to ask.
Okay, who has questions for them?
I have a question regarding the property management. How will the property be managed?
Good question, yeah. So my, Adam is moving. He's in Florida right now, and he's got an extensive construction background and property manager background. He's actually moving to, I didn't mention it, I own a farm in Candler, and he'll be moving to the farm and will be the property manager. He'll be about 5 minutes away from this property.
One more separate, different question on the depiction, the site plan, the notation of the septic areas. And as I noted, this property is heavily wooded. So those septic areas, what impact is that going to have to the vegetation?
Yeah, I think I probably should have the subsequent person answer that for you, because I'm an emergency medicine doc. I'm not a septic expert by any means, so.
All right, I'll hold that one then. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
All right, members of the board, we'd call Chris Rollins as our next witness.
Please raise your right hand and state your name.
Christopher Rollins.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, and one more time if you just state your name for the board.
Yeah, my name is Christopher Rollins. I go by Chris.
All right, and where are you currently employed?
I'm employed with Cage Engineering.
And what's your role with Cage Engineering?
I am a project manager and lead designer.
And how long have you been in that role?
So I have been the lead designer for Cage Asheville since we started the office 3.5 years ago. And I've assumed the role of project manager for the past 2 years.
So can you tell the board more about your responsibilities with each of those roles?
Sure, yeah. So the lead designer role really comes down to enabling my teammates and those who are under my supervision to exercise their skills in land planning and design, and to kind of run quality assurance and quality control for the design that is produced by our office. And I was a project manager. That role also involves QA/QC, but the project manager role falls a little bit more into the permitting, facilitation, kind of engagement with third parties as necessary, and permitting jurisdictions as required.
And I just want to clarify, am I correct in saying that you don't have a professional engineering degree?
That's correct, I do not.
But you do work closely with the engineers that review your site plans?
Absolutely, yeah, on a daily basis I do.
Okay. And did you work with a firm prior to joining Cage Engineering?
Yes, I did.
And how long were you with that firm?
I was with that firm for 4.5 years. That was Pesterfield Engineering. I joined that firm and worked there, and was lucky to work under Bronze Pesterfield until his passing in 2021, after which that firm closed, and I joined Cage Engineering.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on what your role was there?
So at Pesterfield, yeah, I started out for the first few months as a construction inspector, kind of representing the engineering firm on construction sites. Moved very swiftly into design, stormwater grading, and so within, I would say, 2 years of starting with Pesterfield, I was a project manager for Pesterfield Engineering, and I held that role there for 2.5 years until the firm closed.
Okay. And how many land development projects would you say that you've worked on?
Dozens, several dozen. I don't know the exact number, unfortunately, but it has been a big part of every day of my life for the past 8 years. So it is in the dozens.
And where did the majority of those projects occur?
Here in Western North Carolina. So Buncombe County, City of Asheville, Henderson County, City of Hendersonville. Did some work in Transylvania County, Haywood County a little bit. So very much in this region and in this, in this area.
So what would you say would be your areas of expertise?
So I would like to consider myself very good at what I do in terms of project management, and that involves overseeing kind of conceptual land development design and project forecasting and things like that. On the design lead front, I have extensive experience in stormwater design, in grading, in roadway design, in utility design, pretty much all of the different components that come together under a civil's umbrella to produce a constructible set of permitted plans.
And so is there any training that's involved in your role as a project manager and lead designer?
So I attend on a monthly basis just kind of general industry training sessions that cover a range of topics from, software, grading software and new kind of tips and tricks for that, as well as just kind of your basic, understanding a geotechnical report, understanding a traffic study, understanding a soils report, things of that nature. And I've been attending those monthly, on a monthly basis for many years, 4 or 5 years.
All right, so I'm going to show you a document here. I'm going to grab that from underneath. Is this your CV?
Yes, it is.
And does this CV accurately reflect your work history and areas of expertise?
Yes, it does.
All right, members of the board, we'd ask that Mr. Rollins' CV be admitted as applicant's Exhibit 1, and I have copies of those to share.
I don't either. Oh, they did? Well,
They came to me afterwards.
okay. I don't think that was me, so. Okay, well, this wall is pretty tall, so.
Okay, Chris, so on your CV, it lists several areas of expertise, and I kind of want to walk through those. Can you explain to the board a little bit about your work history in the area of site design?
Sure, yeah. So Cage Engineering, and previously largely what Pesterfield Engineering performed, was land development, which is the development of previously undeveloped land. So it's not necessarily a change from a prior use, it's all kind of raw land. And so the process of land planning involves initially an assessment of the grade. That's a big part of it. The grade of the land, the available utilities as it may relate to the intended end use, and the adjoining parcels, the access ways. It is a very long list of different considerations that all need to work in tandem and kind of cooperate with each other as you put together an initial design. And those things are sometimes subject to change based on factors that come into play throughout the course of a design project. But the planning phase and the layout phase is really where you try to anticipate any challenges that might come up that make any given project unique and account for those in the way that you present your conceptual plan.
Okay, so how about stormwater master planning?
Sure, yeah. So stormwater, I mentioned when you look at a site initially, you're looking at the grade. That is due in large part to stormwater and the impact that any development has on runoff on-site and off-site. And so when you're dealing with residential, especially when you have so many different areas of impervious, specific smaller isolated footprints of impervious, then really the thing that drives the placement of those footprints is the ability to achieve the intended drainage patterns that do not negatively impact the site itself or the adjoining properties. And so that is one of the first steps when you're starting a layout, is to determine, based on the grade, how you will manage stormwater, and that often leads to slight adjustments or, occasionally large adjustments into how you have a site laid out to account for essentially gravity.
All right, and last one I'll ask you about, and you've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but how about site grading and earthwork analysis?
Sure, yeah. So site grading goes hand in hand often with stormwater design. So you arrive at a place in the design process wherein you have an idea of where you want your stormwater to go, you have an idea of where you want your roads to be, and the next challenge in that process is to determine the best way to turn that from 2D into 3D, essentially, and grade the roads in and grade the pads in and all that. So that is a standard part of every project, and the earthwork analysis is really a function of economic viability, which is not something that you can avoid in developments like this and larger developments, industrial developments, anything like that. So the earthwork analysis is a function of determining how much soil you would have to import to make the grades work the way you have them shown in your grading plan, or how much leftover you would have if you are doing mostly clearing.
All right, thank you for walking through that, Chris. Members of the board, I'd like to qualify Chris Rollins as an expert in land planning and site development.
Okay, I'm going to defer to staff because this is unusual. He has no actual credentials.
And once again, I think that people can get credentials through experience and things like that. It doesn't necessarily that the person has to have an engineering degree or anything like, I'm sorry, excuse me. That they don't necessarily have to have an engineering degree to be an expert. So I think that that is within your discretion as to whether it is. But I do think that you need to be careful about because the witness cannot certify plans, the witness is, so those type of things, he's not sealing something and certifying it. So that is something that you need to be aware of.
Okay, and Jillian, were you going to say something?
I'll just say it's typical in an engineering firm to have people that don't have engineering degrees or a seal that are working on projects like this. Again, what Kurt said is they don't seal the plans, but they're project managers, they're construction managers, drafters, but then the ultimate sealing of the plans ends up with the engineer at that firm.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, if I can just say something, under Rule of Evidence 702 that talks about expert opinion testimony, it basically has a standard that says if the witness has specialized knowledge that will assist the trier of fact in making their decision. Oh my goodness. Madam Chair, I'll start all over again. I apologize. You were looking at me awkwardly and I forgot. So Rule of Evidence 702 does say it's got a series of elements that you look at when you're looking to qualify an individual as an expert. And if they hold specialized knowledge that would assist the trier of fact, that is you, the board members, in coming to a decision, the courts from the North Carolina Supreme Court all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States has said the fact that they aren't credentialed, they can still qualify as an expert as long as this board or a jury or a judge would think that they have specialized knowledge. So I think walking through his evidence, or strike that, walking through his testimony as it relates to the 8 years of experience doing site design, project management, land development, would allow him to testify as to this site plan, this land development, and its compliance with some of the factors set forth in the ordinance.
Okay.
And the board's welcome to ask him any questions.
I've got a question. Who will be the engineer that will seal these?
Certified.
I can
this
tell you
plan?
that, but he'd be better to.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we have the principal that supervises the Asheville office. His name is Frederick Thady. He has 35 plus years of experience as an engineer, as a licensed engineer, and he will be the principal responsible for providing the licensure required to pass this along as a fully permitted plan set. Now, there is also an additional engineer that I work with on a daily basis. His name is Brad Havanek. He's also a fully licensed engineer. He has 10 years of experience. He will be involved in this process as well, not at the principal engineer level, but to assist in QA/QC and to provide an extra buffer of insight and input on the plans that we develop and the engineering that is produced from our office.
David, did you have a question? Or Damien? I thought I heard a question out here.
No question, but as an unlicensed engineer myself, I would think that he would be qualified to answer our questions today.
Okay. Does anybody have an issue with him being qualified as a? Okay, so we accept.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mr. Rollins, are you familiar with this project?
Very, yes.
And how are you involved?
So this project is a project that I've been involved with since approached by the landowner and the development group. So I have overseen every phase of our involvement with the project, which began with the site layout and the rough conceptual grading and the stormwater concepts.
And did you prepare an affidavit in advance of this hearing today?
Yes, I did.
All right, I'm going to reach over here. All right, I'm going to hand you this. Is that your affidavit?
Yes.
And has it been changed or altered in any way?
Not that I can tell, no.
And on that last page there, if you'll confirm for me, is that your signature at the end of that?
Yes, it is.
All right. And have you familiarized yourself with the standards for a special use permit and level 1 planned unit development as set forth in the Buncombe County zoning ordinance?
Yes, I have.
And does your affidavit contain your opinions about this project related to those standards?
Yes, it does.
Members of the board, I'd ask that this affidavit be admitted as applicant's exhibit 2.
And I do want to ask as well, Madam Chair, whether you ever admitted the CV as applicant Exhibit 1?
Oh.
I don't,
Okay, so let's admit it as Exhibit 1.
okay. And I think, yeah,
And then I think this one's being added as Exhibit 2, right?
Yes.
Is that what I heard?
Mhm.
I can't hear what you said, Brian.
No.
Now you have characterized yourself.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Okay.
All right, so in the application materials submitted for this project, there is a preliminary soils evaluation report from Walker Ferguson with Land Resource Management PLLC. Are you familiar with that report?
Yes, I am.
All right, and just to clarify, that's already been submitted online with the application material. Have you had the opportunity to review his report?
Yes, I have.
And is that type of document commonly relied upon by individuals in your field when making the determinations about the location of septic fields and septic tanks and repair areas?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And how did the conclusions and findings from that soil evaluation report impact your land planning and site development on this project?
So for this project specifically, we were and are very fortunate that there is an abundance of suitable soil on site for both conventional and drip irrigation septic systems. And so we were able to use that information to prioritize our stormwater and our earthwork balancing and use the areas of suitable soil that worked the best with that layout. And so with that advanced information and with that soils report, we were able to have a lot more flexibility in the way that we laid this out with certain goals in mind, like keeping as much of the existing woodlands as possible, especially around the border of the site.
All right. So do you believe that this project as designed is consistent with the recommendations from that soil evaluation report?
Yes, I do.
All right. And so I've got the site plan pulled up now, and I just want to walk through some of the specifics of it with you. So can you explain first why the access roads are located in this specific location shown on the site plan?
Yeah, sure. The owner mentioned previously that there is an existing logging road. It's kind of a 4x4 trail, but as you pass the property on Case Cove Road, that is an area where there are no trees. And so that is, in addition to the existing grading that makes it accessible from the road, that makes it an ideal place for the main entrance to avoid the removal of any of the trees that abut the roadway along the length of the property.
So when vehicles are entering off of Case Cove Road, can you kind of explain the benefit of the road design like it's proposed? You've got, looks like an area here that's similar to a roundabout, and you've got some culverts.
Sure, yeah. So the way the road is designed is very much in line with our overall goals of stormwater management, as I mentioned before. So the road design as is features roadside swales. Our ambition is for this project to qualify as a low-density stormwater management project, which would prioritize vegetated open channel flow of stormwater over underground piped conveyance. So we have our layout presented in such a way that the roads are kind of a fundamental collection and delivery system for the runoff. And the way that we have it all laid out, we have roadside ditches sized for, actually they're not sized right now, but they will be sized for the appropriate storm event to convey all of the runoff off of the roads in a sustainable way, non-erosive way. Now the landscaping area inside the non-traditional roundabout type of figure we're looking at, I think that, in my mind, that contributes to the aesthetic of the entry of the property and contributes to the quality of user experience for the people that live there.
So where's it planned that cars are going to be parking?
So each home is planned to have a driveway suitable for parking 2 vehicles side by side.
And what's the intent with the balance of the property not planned for the structures or septic areas?
Well, my understanding and what we've presented here is that everything that is able to remain undeveloped will in perpetuity, I think. And I don't want to speak for Bill in that regard, or Mr. Cole rather. But the goal in this layout is that the woods will remain anywhere and everywhere that they can for the benefit of the adjoining parcels and the benefit of the folks that wind up living here.
All right, so I want to focus in real quick on this cul-de-sac down here.
Mm-hmm.
So how far is the edge of that cul-de-sac from the property boundary there?
So the edge of that cul-de-sac is 25 to 30 feet. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. 25 to 30 feet from the edge of that property boundary. Based on the grade, maybe another 5 or 10 feet of that would need to be cleared in order to grade that road. So approximately 20 feet from the property line would be able to be left undisturbed in that location. And that is the closest our disturbance gets to the property line.
Okay. And how is water, what's the plan for water being provided to the homes?
So water will be provided by City of Asheville Water Department. We have secured a commitment of water service from that department.
Okay. And can you describe a little bit more about this amenity area here?
Sure, yeah. I think that is intended to be kind of a focal point of community gathering. So I don't believe we're anticipating or planning for any structures in that area. It would be more of a kind of a picnic table type of gathering place that acts as a central location and a focal point from which many of the existing trails throughout the wooded areas would be accessed.
Okay, so I'm going to throw up here a plan and profile view for each of these roads. So can you kind of describe what this profile view is showing?
Sure, yeah. So this shows the profile of Marty Way, and the scale on this as shown, vertical and horizontal are different scales, and that is why it looks so extreme as a way to represent it on the page in a way that keeps it all very straightforward. So the slope on all of the grade on all of our roads is below 10% across the site. That is negative 4%. I think these are very common road grades in this area and in the mountainous regions around us. I think these are actually desirable grades compared to a lot of developments. The driveway at my house, which is only a few miles away from this, is a lot steeper than that.
All right, so this one was for Marty Way, so if you'll just kind of describe the same thing for the other road.
Sure, yeah. Aldine Street, it's the same general concept, and the scale of it overemphasizes the actual grade of it. So this is, I believe, between 7 and 9% grade, so still under 10%. This would be steeper than the main road, but still well within, standard practice, and that type of grade is well within the standards expected of subdivision roads. This is not a subdivision, but as a residential road, comparing it to that standard, we do meet that.
And are you familiar with the zoning district of this property?
This is open use, yep.
All right, and are there any density requirements in the zoning district?
Not in the pathway that we have laid out in terms of permitting this.
Okay, and so you can kind of see it here, but between these buildings, what's the proposed distance there?
So the proposed minimum distance is 20 feet.
Okay, and can you speak to how many stories these structures are going to be?
The structures will be single-story structures. The height of the structures from the foundation to the roof will be less than 20 feet across the board.
All right, so I want to move back now to your affidavit that you previously submitted. Are the opinions contained in that affidavit still your opinions?
They are.
And do you have an opinion on whether this project complies with the requirements set forth in the Buncombe County zoning ordinance for a special use permit?
In my opinion, it does conform.
Okay. And do you have an opinion on whether this project complies with the requirements in the Buncombe County zoning ordinance for a level 1 planned unit development?
Yes, my opinion is that it does conform with those requirements.
Okay. That would be all my questions. If the board has any questions for Mr. Rollins.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
Any sidewalks?
We do not have any sidewalks proposed for this project.
I'm wondering why you didn't add any sidewalks to this project.
That's a good question. That was never considered a goal of the end result of the project. I think the presence of kind of an abundance of existing trails in and throughout the property are, while they don't necessarily satisfy the same transportation requirements that a sidewalk would, it still gives the development and the people that live there an avenue to get out and walk around and experience the woods. And so in light of the presence of those trails, I think the decision was made to reduce our footprint to maintain those rather than extend our road footprint by another 5 or 10 feet.
What's the road surface?
So the road surface as it is proposed would be phased in a similar way that the general development would be phased. So initially, it would be a gravel road. Before all of the units are built, the road would be paved. But for the benefit of the continued construction vehicles coming in and out to continue to build the development and to avoid the need for repaving very shortly after an initial paving, the goal is to maintain a gravel road and pave once significant completion of the development is achieved.
And one other question, the question I asked Bill earlier in terms of the septic field, is my assumption correct that those would be cleared of the significant vegetation?
Largely cleared, yes.
Largely
So-
cleared, what portion would not be cleared?
So the way that these septic areas would be laid out, they are not necessarily going to look exactly the way that they're represented here. We don't necessarily have to have straight lines. What we'll do is we'll follow contours with our repair areas and any drip irrigation required. And so in certain areas, we would be able to maintain the trees and the foliage. I would not, that is our goal, that is our ambition. And so when I say largely, I mean it is likely that we will have to remove a lot of the large vegetation, but our aim throughout the process will be to maintain as much as we can.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, let me ask the city, Are there any requirements, not the city, the county, are there any requirements in developments like this that a person in a wheelchair be able to move around the development? Any kind of legal requirements?
Internal development, you can construct houses to ADA compliance, but I don't think it's required. I don't know if you planning to build any houses to ADA compliance?
I don't know directly the answer to that. Our intention would be to follow building code with the building of the houses, so, and also provide a livable space for anyone who wants to live there. So I imagine that would be incorporated, but at a building code level rather than an infrastructure and shared access sense.
Yeah.
Since it's single-family structures, I think it would have to meet single-family building code, whereas the ADA compliance usually comes into with multifamily or attached housing. Does
Okay,
that
so
make
there's no requirement that if somebody in a wheelchair was in one house and they wanted to get to the next house, that they be able to get there?
If it's a private development and private roads, I don't think that we would have any dog in the fight. However, I think if the roads or whatever would be dedicated to the NCDOT, that then there would be additional requirements that they would have to build it everything would have to be to NCDOT standards.
Okay, great, thank you.
Just don't think it works that way.
I'm sorry, David, what?
I just don't think the ADA requirements work that way, because you're now making it a public rental property. And there are requirements for accessing public areas within that property. I think we might be conflating making conforming and non-conforming properties comply with ADA, but building a new structure intended for rental to the public. I'm just curious, is there any definitive knowledge base here as to what that is?
So again, I think there are requirements for ADA compliance when you're talking about multifamily structures. But in this case, building permits would permit them as single-family structures. So I don't think the single-family code.
Unit for the intended purpose of rentals?
Say that again?
Well, this is not going to be subdivided. This is not individual houses. This is a community of multifamily. The fact that they're not vertical and the fact that they're horizontal is what I'm wondering whether we're applying the codes correctly, and that's not our job here.
Yeah, I don't think that that's something that the county itself would have any enforcement ability into unless it was built into a building code or zoning code ordinances, and to my knowledge, we don't have anything like that. So if there was an issue with that, that would be between the federal government and the homeowner or the people using the property.
If I could just add briefly, and I understand your question.
Brian, could you
Brian,
speak
can
to
you
the
use the microphone, please?
Sorry. Just if I could speak briefly, I think I understand your question. You had said it's a multifamily residential development. It is a planned unit development where the ownership underneath the houses are going to be under single ownership. The houses will be rented. They're not connected. It's not a duplex or a triplex or a quadplex. And so realistically, what these individual structures would have to comply with is the most current building code for a single-family residential structure. The fact that it's all individually owned by one person doesn't create a multi-family residential structure like we just saw the 3 units in the 150. These are all single-family individual residential structures permitted as a single-family individual residential structure. We're not getting any federal funding, so we don't have to comply with what the federal government would require us to put in sidewalks or to be ADA compliant. And in fact, the ADA would allow anything to be built. I think there's an excuse. You can say, for a variance, you can have a variance into side setbacks if you needed to have a handicap ramp for ADA compliance. But the building code right now, and Mr. Rollins can testify, doesn't have an ADA component for a single-family residential house.
Thank you.
Okay. For me, my question is about Victoria and stormwater. Have you discussed your plans with Victoria yet?
I have, not to great extent, but we have exchanged several emails regarding the anticipated layout and the ideal outcomes for stormwater management on site.
Okay. And so that's part of like what we're putting in is that, Victoria would have to approve it, right? Or that's already kind of baked into the process?
So any project that they disturbed greater than an acre, Victoria would have to approve a stormwater permit. We do have them contact her, we do have her look at it during our technical review committee, and they give her sort of what he said, an overview of what they think they're gonna do for stormwater, and she lets them know if there are any big issues she sees.
Okay. And then did she have any concerns or anything?
No. I think our intention is to prepare a full, as required through the site plan review process that would be subsequent to Board of Adjustment approval, would be to prepare a full stormwater plan, stormwater management plan submittal, which includes calculations and, additional information and additional references to prove out the compliance of our stormwater system with applicable standards.
Great. And then for the amenity area piece, from our previous case, kids and dogs or kids and pets are kind of important, and right now it's approximate amenity area. How could you better define that?
I would defer to the owner to make that determination. For my part, I think we can design and place a significant an amenity area as is desired or requested.
So I think the goal is safe, for, I know if we had Carla here today, she'd be like a safe place for kids out of away from cars. And then I think for David, I'm not going to speak for him, but, a safe place for dogs to do their job.
Sure.
And, so that's more the call.
Absolutely, and I think that's all, while not represented in our site plan, I think we share those goals in what our desired outcome is for this amenity area.
Okay. David, does that suit your?
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck up on the whole fair housing thing. I don't have the legal expertise, but my recollection is that because it's rental specifically, and it's more than 4 units, and it's not owner occupied, I really think you've got to comply with ADA accessibility to the building. And I'm out of my league, but my memory is telling me that ADA applies. The whole point of ADA was that you didn't start building stuff that people couldn't get to, and that they gave us the ability to adapt old buildings to codes, but not a branded building out of the ground that we know is going to be rented. And so what you're essentially saying is, we're going to build a building in the woods, you can't get to it, there's an amenity, you can't get to it, but because we're calling it private, well, we can do what we want. I just don't think that's how the law works, but there's no experts here to tell me. And I don't know what to do with that. But I'm pretty sure fair housing applies.
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't have any expertise on that.
Once again, that there are many different titles to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So if we were building a structure or things like that, Title II would be applicable such as government buildings and things like that. But for private structures, it's not something that the county enforces or that this board is responsible for. If there is an ADA component or an AD complaint, it would be enforced through the equal opportunity, the EEOC of the, that would be the agency that would be enforcing that. Any construction standards or the building code would be dependent on the development. If it's a residential development and that's what the code determines it is, there would be residential condition, or that would be in the building code for residential properties. If it is considered a commercial property or something like that, there would be different standards that the developer would still have to comply with. Does that help? No, but, okay, well.
We could accept a condition that says we would comply with all local, state.
Brian, remember the microphone.
I mean, I think the board could address that with a condition that says that we comply with all local, state, and federal regulations.
In regards to fair housing and ADA, yes. Because fair housing talks about you can't rent to someone. You have to accommodate the disabilities. And you're coming out of ground with something. It's not like you're taking an old building and you're adapting it. You're coming out of ground with the intent to rent to individuals.
So I think he's giving you what you want, is what I hear.
Yeah, well, the fair housing would apply.
If it applies.
Yeah.
I don't want to step into the shoes of something that doesn't apply and say, we'll comply with this higher standard.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
yep, local, state, federal regulations where applicable.
Okay, so Kurt, did you get that?
We'll get a condition that says that the applicant agrees to comply with all federal, state, and local rules as applicable to the development, including but not limited to the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disability Act.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, can I make one comment on this, just for Dave? I am a big user of AI, and I've got an AI app that I use all the time to answer every question.
Thank goodness.
Okay. And I looked it up on this, and what it says is the Americans with Disabilities Act does not cover privately owned single-family rental homes in a development unless those homes or parts of them are used as a place of public accommodation, such as doctor's offices, daycare, rental, or sales offices or similar function.
Okay, so
Right.
let's get us back on track.
We're on track.
Brian's agreed to get the conditions in there, and David's got his expert opinion from ChatGPT.
Love it.
And now we can move along. Any other questions or comments, or, okay,
I think if the board doesn't have any other questions, that would conclude our presentation.
okay, any other closing statement, okay, so anybody here wanting to do witness? Anybody? So I see a couple of hands. How about the lady with the gloves? They didn't, there was no one for screening.
Please raise your right hand and state your name.
Ann Clark,
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, Mrs. Clark. How can,
Okay,
what would you like to
I
share?
live across the road from this development. I've lived there for 10 years. It's almost been exactly 10 years. There are some problems that I see, having lived there as long as I have. I'm a walker. I walk that road every day. And I also sit on my front porch.
Do you mind clarifying which road is that road?
This is Case Cove Road.
Okay, thanks.
And I also sit on my front porch, which borders Case Cove Road, and look across the road at that piece of property. Okay, the development doesn't really fit with the rest of the residences on the road. Perhaps when it's finished, there should be maybe about 70 people with their cars and stuff in this small area, whereas the rest of the road, from, let's say, Ankle Lake Road down to Misty Lane, there's probably about 24 inhabitants. From Misty Lane down to the bottom of the hill, which is Sluter Branch, there's probably about 24 more inhabitants. So we're not densely populated at all. There's 50 people in an area, and they're going to put 70 people in a smaller area. Anyway, I think there will be increased traffic, noise, and light pollution. And you say you don't have anything to do with traffic, well then I won't say anything about traffic, but it's going to be interesting. 70 more people in the area will certainly add to noise, and noise carries. I can hear the Inca High School band practicing as if it were right across the street from me. And I know conversations carry, even especially in the mountains. As far as light pollution, I do have outside lights on my garage and on my deck in the back, but they are rarely, if ever, used. I would not like to see street lights across the street that come on and go off at certain times. We live in the country, after all, and some of us like to be able to see the sky. Lights from cars leaving the site when they shine into the front of my house may be a problem. One of the things that is going to happen with this is there's going to be a decrease in the tree canopy. We had a decrease in the tree canopy when Helene went through. We don't need another decrease in the tree canopy. And there needs to be a substantial buffer between these houses and Case Cove. I think that both trees and shrubs should be added. There is a nice mix now of hardwoods and softwoods, and that should be added to. There's going to be a loss of wildlife habitat. Even now I see more birds, turkeys, deer, bears, groundhogs, raccoons in my property because of all the development around me that pushes the wildlife into some people's backyards. And I don't have fence on my backyard. I don't want a fence in my backyard. I'd rather the wildlife have a way through. Then there are some current problems in my area that maybe haven't been addressed, or maybe they have been addressed. We have frequent power outages, and they are of long duration. And when we have a power outage, we are the last ones to get reconnected. There are about 20 people may be at the end of Case Cove Road as it abuts Inca Lake Road. We are always the last ones. So they need to take that in consideration. Slow snow removal. Thank the Lord we've only had, the last time we had a decent snow was in December of 2018. But I have no idea how they're going to get out and even use Case Cove Road because they don't get to us maybe for a couple of days as far as snow removal. It's just the trucks going back and forth on the road that clear the snow away and maybe the sunshine. And the other thing is we have low water pressure. I use the hose to wash my car, and even using my toilet inside and then flushing the toilet and then trying to use the sink, the water pressure is not there. And so, you know, this would be an additional drain on the water pressure. The other thing is, has anybody thought about wildfire danger? I see that there's only one entrance and exit to this property. This is in a woods. I know we've been having lots of rain recently, but the wildfire thing is never far away. And you can have a year with excessive rain, which is followed by a year of excessive drought. Those are my concerns.
Thank you. All right, I saw a black shirt male. Thank you. And if you don't mind swearing in.
All right. Sure. Please raise
My
your
name
right
is
hand
Alan
and state your
McNutt.
name.
Alan McNutt.
And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Cool. So firstly, I am speaking as a neighbor in the area. I live directly across the street on Case Cove. It's a really tight community. We all know each other by name and face. We see each other daily. It's a walking community to a degree. It is fast-paced generally otherwise. I think the traffic and general volume increase with a project like this has been a turnoff to all of us as we've first assessed it. And at first glance, looking at this project proposition, it appeared as if we had, an out-of-state land shark sort of LLC under a mystery name that was wanting to develop this for what could be pretty high yields. Looking at that further and meeting Mr. Cole directly, I don't have that concern anymore. And having read the project proposition, I actually think it's pretty solid. I think that we do need housing potentials for folks that need it in this demographic and price ranges. If our target range was like 3,000, 3,500, I would be worried that this was not in integrity with what is being proposed. From what I'm hearing, 1,500 to 2,000 a month for these types of units and square footage is a demographic that I can relate to in my own, past decade of life. And I think it matches what they're proposing for what is an integral part to this community. Speaking as a trained architectural designer, Cornell 21, I think what I'm seeing on the proposition is actually undercooked. I am not finding good design here. I'm finding an engineer putting, pieces together in a way that meets engineered language. I see cul-de-sacs lacking radius to be able to access sites number 1 through 3 of phase 1. I'm seeing a cul-de-sac at a dead end that doesn't functionally serve anyone within that radius, does not engage with the woodland adjacent to it. There's parallel facades that create a sound phenomenon within that road that if someone has a ping to their exhaust, not just one house is affected by that, but many because of the sound corridor. Slight adjustments to this by the hand of an architectural designer, 5-degree rotations of each one of these units, setback variety would address these things, and it's very evident to me that this has not been touched by an architect. I'm not seeing schemas, I'm seeing schematics. And if that's what comes next after what would be an approval to move forward, great. I would really recommend that someone with a design background that has a tactile and experienced way to engage with what is the user interface of the actual residents would be highly beneficial here. With my own experience on this site too, I do worry about storm water in that, we have 1 to 3 inch rain events often. We're only 6 miles off the Blue Ridge Parkway. A 1 to 3 inch event with what is this road going directly down slope could, wind up with a lot of flooding and soggy ground down at the end of the cul-de-sac and what is the proposed recreational area. Again, speaking to the recreational area and sidewalk, it feels really undercooked. I'm not seeing access to the recreational areas. There's no pathways. Speaking to sidewalks, I don't believe that ADA compliance is required here. So because it's privately owned, but 10-foot roadway on either side is not going to be enough, I think, for what is this population density and their desire to walk and be physically active compared to what will be a congested Case Cove road. So I would recommend, with as much woodland as available, probably increasing some of the setbacks, putting in small pea gravel trails, even paved gravel sidewalks, something of that sort, knowing the neighborhood, knowing what is a similar and an analogous case study that is Shadowbrook down the road. Shadowbrook does not have sidewalks, but it is quiet enough with maybe 7 to 10 homes on that main strip that people can walk on the road. I think I was also put off as an architectural designer to see that this was an out-of-state contract for the structures themselves. As a resident, I do appreciate that they're semi-modular. It would mean that the sound print of this development would not affect us in a way that at first I anticipated. But if one is truly trying to put into the local economy, especially as claimed post-Helene, a local contract with a design-build firm would do that beyond serving what is just the residents, right? And there are plenty of design-build firms here that could, I think, meet this volume and scale of project. The only request that I do have of this project direct would be that they retain as much of the rearmost woodland for what is Wilderness Passage. It is a very diverse woodland. We have some really rare species of mushrooms and fox communities. We've got, a really deer passageway that should be retained, and it seems like it is with the site plan. I really do appreciate that. And so much as the road frontage can be preserved, that would be an equal, request. Yeah, it looks like we've got 250 feet of woodland there. And even just assessing, or just to identify the wind blow, if that was reduced down to 50, you wind up with a bunch of trees that will be taking down power lines and obstructing the roadways. This is from like lived-in experiences of this road. It is a high wind ramping up to a small plateau that then feeds into the Blue Ridge. So as it is right now with the site plan, I do like what the setbacks are and the provisions to retain as much woodland as is proposed. I think that covers everything. Do we have any questions or good?
Nope.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
I see orange rust shirt.
Yes, please raise your right hand and state your name.
Emily Sutton Desio.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do, thank you. I'd like to commend Mr. Cole for.
Can
trying
you
to
speak
develop-
closer to the microphone, please, because I can barely hear you?
Yeah, I'm a better. I'd like to commend Mr. Cole for trying to develop the property in a way that protects his heritage and our country life that we live out there. My mom and I and my brother actually own the adjoining property that's north, so kind of below the creek, below the septic fields. Forestry easements have given the Coles a tax break in Buncombe County for more than 50 years. They paid less because of the commitment to keep the trees. And I would ask for your consideration in this project to make sure that that tree canopy stays. We are in the country. I'm very concerned with streetlights and would ask for your commitment that all streetlights be downward facing so that we can protect the night sky and not interfere with our neighbors' use and enjoyment of the animals, the wildlife, the stars. And then I guess to express our biggest concern is the slope follows down from the septic tanks to a clean water stream. That stream feeds a recreational Biltmore Lake. And so that current metropolitan sewer line actually runs all the way out to Inca High School, about 1.5 miles from this project. And it seems to me like instead of having a septic field and taking tree canopy, that we should be thinking about extending the MSD sewer line to these types of projects. I think that's about it, right? Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Last call. Going once, going twice. All right. Did you guys need to make any closing statements?
No, I appreciate all the neighbors' concerns. What I did hear and what I was impressed with is that they think that this is a good, sound development. Everybody has their little nuances about how they'd like to see it, pitched 5% and widened. I think once on-site development and as-built drawings are submitted, there may be some additional separations, but I'm glad to hear that the neighbors are happy with the development. We would just ask for you to approve it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll close the public session and then board discuss. Who would like to go first?
Seems like a reasonable development to me. I don't see any significant problems with it, so I'd be in favor of it.
Okay.
I concur, it's open use. We could be talking about a lot more difficult challenges for the use of this property than what is being proposed. Development is development. We can't stop development, but if there's going to be development on this beautiful piece of property, this seems like the right thing to do.
Great. Would anybody like to do a motion or any other opinions?
Madam Chair, based on the evidence presented to this board, including the following exhibits, the petitioner's application, the submitted development plan, the GIS maps, the staff report, testimony presented at the hearing, and I don't think there was an affidavit.
One condition,
Do I
I
need to
think.
note those? Oh, no, the items that were presented.
The applicant exhibits 1 and
2.
Was exhibit, did you admit exhibit 2 as well?
Yes.
Okay, so
1 and
both
2.
of those.
All right, exhibits 1 and 2. I move that this board adopt the following findings of fact: that this matter was properly advertised, is within this board's jurisdiction, and is ripe for its consideration, that this application, together with the conditions proposed by staff and/or this board and agreed to by the applicant, does meet the requirements for granting a special use permit contained in the Buncombe County Code of Ordinances, Section 78-621, Paragraph 3.
Okay, do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay.
Based upon the foregoing findings of fact and the reasons set forth therein, I move that the requested special use permit be approved and that the order approving the permit be adopted and executed as presented and as modified in this meeting.
Okay. Who's the second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll approve.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
All right. Madam Chair, members of the board, findings of fact that this matter was advertised and noticed, that all parties with standing have been, and all the applicant and any parties with standing have been given an opportunity to be heard. This is for an special use permit for a plan unit development. The property is in open use. That the applicant, and that pursuant to the Code of Ordinance, the board makes the following findings of fact based on the Plan Unit Development Level 1 standards set forth in 678B6 of the Buncombe County Zoning Code, that the land within the PUD will be under single ownership and management by the applicant before final approval, that the density is consistent with the intent of the district, that.
You have inconsistent, Jay.
Oh, I have both checked. Sorry about that.
Good catch.
Yes, that the land uses are compatible and do not violate the intent of the zoning district and do not disrupt the character of the community, that the proposed land use meets the minimum requirements as follows, that the minimum lot size do preserve the spirit intent of this section and does comply with the density requirements of the zoning district, that the proposed height set forth in the application does comply with the spirit intent of the zoning district with respect to the total development plan, that the board finds the minimum distance between buildings will ensure adequate light, privacy, and space for emergency vehicles, that the development does provide reasonable visual and acoustic privacy for all dwelling units, that the structures in the permanent development will be set back from the property lines and the rights-of-ways. The board finds that the proposed parking does comply with the spirit intent of this section. The board finds that the conveyance and maintenance of open space, recreational and areas and commercially owned facilities are in accordance with NC General Statute sections 47-1, the Unit Ownership Act, and that the board finds that the building envelopes are shown on the submitted plans and depict the maximum expanse of the footprint of the structures. The Board of Adjustment finds that the proposed use will not affect the health and safety of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed use. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or public appurtenances in the neighborhood. The proposed use will not create an adverse effect on surrounding properties due to noise, odor, or glare effects, that satisfactory ingress and egress of the proposed use has been provided, that the provisions for off-street parking and loading where required have been provided for, that the provisions for adequate and proper utilities with reference to the location, availability, and compatibility have been arranged for. Provisions for buffering, if deemed necessary with reference to type and location, have been arranged for. Signs and any proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic safety, economic effect, and compatibility are within harmony with the proposed district. That playgrounds, open spaces, yards, access ways, and pedestrian ways with reference to location, size, and suitability have been arranged for. Buildings and structures with reference to locations are acceptable, and the hours of operation are acceptable. That the following conditions are necessary, that no subdivision of land proposed currently, so there's no subdivision of land proposed. Should the subdivision of land occur in the future, the applicant understands that it will have to come back to the Board of Adjustment for review and approval. Additionally, it will go through a major subdivision review process and approval. The project must be constructed as depicted in the site plan. The standard requirements for the site plan, excuse me. Excuse me again, all right, are necessary, including the exact location of the buildings, a commercial lighting plan, buffering and landscaping and parking landscaping plan, if required, retaining walls if required, easements and right-of-ways, approved E911 road names, and other conditions as required by the Board of Adjustment. This master site plan permit shall not replace the requirement of pulling individual site plan permits for each building or structure within the development. And this is the one condition that you all have added. The applicant shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws as applicable to the application, including but not limited to the Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disability Act. Applicant must agree in writing to these conditions prior to the commencement of site work. Conclusions of law. Based on the foregoing findings of fact, the board makes the following conclusion of law: that the applicant's request for a special use permit, together with the imposition of conditions found necessary above, which are incorporated herein, is fully set forth, meets the applicable requirements of the Buncombe County zoning ordinance, and therefore, based on the foregoing findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Board of Adjustment finds that the applicant is hereby granted a special use permit to establish a planned unit development on the property subject to the conditions referenced above. This the 13th day of August 2025.
Great. All right, can I have a motion?
The conditions you read did not comport with the same one that you guys approved. Included none of the language about ADA fair housing.
What? What?
And the American
Yeah.
That's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what I said.
Maybe it didn't in the conclusions.
Okay.
All right, so Brian, or council, is what you said about the ADA fair housing piece?
I'll pull it up again.
Fine.
It was in there.
It's
Okay.
on section D, the applicant shall comply with all federal, state, and local laws as applicable.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, I hear a motion to accept the order.
Second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, motion,
Thank
I
you.
mean, it's approved.
Thank you, Madam.
My words are not coming to me, but it's approved.
Congratulations.
All right, do you guys need a bio break, or do you want to go into the next one?
Keep going.
5 minutes would be great. Okay, so let's just take a quick 5-minute for transition and see.
The Condominium Act, I don't know what condominium is that?
That's
ZPH 20250020, Fillio Variance. And Kurt, if you can, go ahead and let,
Sure, I just wanted to let everybody know that since this is a variance request, it requires a supermajority to approve. So in this case, it would be 6 out of 7 board members. However, since we only have 6 board members here today, the vote would need to be unanimous for approval, and I just want to make sure that the applicant is aware of that.
So this is the,
I'm not hearing you very well. I'm almost wondering if you should use a handheld.
probably what works. This is the Fillio variance. I certify that public hearing was properly noticed and all applicable parties were notified of the meeting in accordance with general statutes and county code. I ask that all applicant and staff materials be accepted into the record as evidence.
So accepted?
The applicant is Wayland Schamberger of Schamberger Architectural Group on behalf of Chris and Kristen Fillio, the property owners. The property is located at 565 South Cliff Parkway, and the total acreage of the property is 1.77 acres. The property is served by septic and public water. The property is zoned RLD and is within both the protected ridge and steep slope overlay. Applicant is seeking an 11% increase in lot width allowance in the protected ridge. The protected ridge overlay allows home width to be up to 30% of the lot width, and the applicant proposes 41% of lot width. The applicant has requested that this variance as it is unfeasible to place the home on the widest portion of the property due to an existing rock outcropping and the possible destabilization of existing slope. And I'll note that South Cliff, the subdivision, was approved prior to our width standards and lot size standards in Protected Ridge. So the subdivision existed before the Protected Ridge and steep slope high elevation overlay existed.
Okay. If you can, come on up and we'll swear you in and get you started.
Did you have any documents or anything that you wanted to?
I asked.
Did we?
Accepted
accepted it.
Okay, sorry.
And then, I'm sorry, also, did anybody have any questions for Jillian before she leaves? Okay, thanks.
Okay, please raise your right hand and state your name.
I'm Wayland Schamberger.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
Now's your time to speak to the board.
Okay. So I'm an architect, have been practicing for 25 years in this area. I grew up in Hendersonville.
And if you can, speak a little louder because I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, I'll speak closer to the mic here. So I'm an architect, been registered for 25 years, and been very passionate about protecting North Carolina and being true to North Carolina's landscape. And even remember when the steep slope and protected ridge were brought to the table years ago. I was one of the ones consulted about why to do that. We were building in a very steep community, and I felt like the work that was being proposed by a Florida developer was too aggressive, and felt like we need to do something about how this work's proceeding. So I'm very familiar with the steep slope and protected ridge application, and I do, for the most part, really appreciate and work with complying with all of that. So this lot in particular is at the very top of South Cliff. All those lots up there are in protected ridge, and this is a unique lot. I would not, I've done projects in these sort of applications and not had a problem with percentage of developed site or the width, but in this instance, this unique shape of the lot, it's at the end of a cul-de-sac, and its shape, it's not just a normal rectangle or an expanding rectangle, which most lots that front top or bottom of the road are typically in a square format. This actually has a triangular shape towards the bottom. We found the most receptive part of the site to put the house. It's in the only spot that it could go. Any higher up on the lot where the lot's wider is a significant rock outcropping, and to develop that would have taken significant excavation and more site disturbance, which is not our goal, nor is it our goal to remove more trees to put the house in the more applicable area. So moving the lot down into the most receptive part of the slope of the site is where we've got it. And that descending triangle that it sets in is why we're in that 41% versus 30% dimension. However, the house itself is only a little over 70 feet in width, and also we're complying with that 25-foot maximum average of height on the house as well, which is in my opinion, it's a tough thing to always get into, but we're there. We meet the standards, and I think comply with the spirit of the law. Our width left to right, which is why this 30% rule is written, so that houses are not too close together, that there's not too much overdevelopment where there are no trees, and we look up and we see ridge lines that are just one house after another. Even if we would have built the house higher up on the lot where the rock outcropping's at, it's still in the same horizontal dimension to the closest house, which is down the hill. I would also like to note that the lot that's in the approved plat to the left of this will never be sold. The developer, when they originally designed it, thought they could access it from the road below, so it's cut off and inaccessible. So essentially, we've got another, I think, a 2.5 acre lot to the left that will never be built upon, nor will it be sold. I'm sure it's going to be soaked up in the community at some point. No, they don't. The developer didn't want to give it to them either, even when the developer knew that it was unsellable. So, and then the lot to the right of it is going to have to be a very difficult lot to develop because it was platted before these rules were put in place, and the 30% rule and the width rule impact that lot to a degree that it's almost impossible to develop. So I feel like in keeping with the spirit of the law of decreasing our disturbance and also showing a proper spacing house to house, this complies. We set the house where I think it fits on the lot best, as well as develops as little amount of land as can be on a developable lot.
Okay, any board questions? Okay, did you want to make closing statement? Since there's no one in the public, so
Yeah.
I'm assuming no standing, no witnesses.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think has anybody got a question that they don't
No one seemed to
understand?
have a question, so
Okay, yeah.
I figure we'll close the public
Are
portion.
you looking at
discuss.
the site plan that I provided with the dimension and everything? Y'all are looking at that? Okay.
Okay.
Very helpful, by the way.
Yep. Okay, how about we'll close the public portion and move into board discussion. Who would like to go first?
I think it's pretty straightforward. This is an odd one, for sure. I think the homework's been done on this, for sure.
It's pretty much why the board was created in the first place.
I don't think there's much debate on this one in terms of it checks the critical boxes.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, based on the evidence presented to this board, including the following exhibits, the petitioner's application, the submitted site plan, the GIS maps, staff report, testimony presented at the hearing, I move that this board adopt the following findings of fact: that this matter was properly advertised, is within the board's jurisdiction, and is ripe for the consideration. That this application, together with the conditions proposed by staff and/or this board and agreed to by the applicant, if any, does meet the requirements for granting a variance contained in the Buncombe County Code of Ordinances, Section 78-621, Paragraph 4.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Madam Chair, based on the foregoing findings of fact and for the reasons set forth therein, I move that the request of variance be approved and that staff be instructed to draft an order consistent with this motion, approving the permit with any agreed upon conditions for review and execution by the chair, acting chair, or such person's designee on behalf of this board.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have the following proposed order. This is for a variance request for a single-family resident dwelling on tax lot, or PIN number 9676-56-4036, which is 565 South Cliff Parkway. That this matter, once again, is within the board's jurisdiction and ripe for consideration, that all required notices have been sent, and that the applicant, and once again, this is a variance request pursuant to 78-621 subsection 4 and 78-645 subparagraph F4 of the Buncombe County zoning ordinance, to request an increase in the building width of a single-family residential dwelling. That at the hearing, the applicant and any parties withstanding were given an opportunity to be heard. The board finds that an unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the zoning ordinance, that the hardship does not result from conditions, or that the hardship does result from conditions that are particular to the property, that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner, and 5, that the requested variance is consistent with the spirit and purpose and intent of the ordinance, and that the public safety is secured and substantial justice would be achieved in granting the same. There are no proposed conditions, correct? All right. And that based on the foregoing findings of fact, the board makes the following conclusions of law: that the application satisfies the requirements for granting a variance contained in the Buncombe County zoning ordinance, and therefore, based on the following findings of fact and conclusions of law, that the applicant's request for a variance is granted as requested in the application this, the 13th day of August, 2025.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Great. You're done.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, we're adjourned.